All right, I call to order the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board. To bring this meeting to order, we have a few administrative actions that we have to go through. So I ask everyone here for an action item or workshop, please bear with us. First, we have to do a vote of audibility for a remote member. We're verifying that each member who's participating remotely can actually be heard and that they're at a volume that all of us can heard at an appropriate volume. Board Member Murray, can you please state for the record your location and the reason you're participating remotely?
This is Board Member Murray. I am calling from my residence in Indiana, Virginia for health reasons.
Thank you. Need a motion? No one? Please so kind.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Ms. Murray can be clearly heard and that her remote participation comports with the policy.
All right, we have a motion for a second. Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? There are none. The motion carries. All right. Public comment limitations. The ARB also needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak. During public comment periods, the public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after action items as is a practice. I move that each member of the public have 3 minutes to speak. Second. Ms. Orr, all those in favor?
Aye.
The opposition? The abstentions? None. The motion carries. All right. All that out of the way. I want to just point out notification that this meeting is being recorded and a recording is going to be posted online in 10 days. It's for everyone who's in attendance for their awareness. And Mr. Zellman has been so polite as we always start our meeting. The reading of the statement of purpose and intent of the historic service.
Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, recreation, and pleasure of the public, through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of and encroachment on such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuing and improvement and are appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be keeping with the character preserved and.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zellman. All right, the way we need to approve an agenda. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted or any proposed modifications.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve the agenda for the December 14th, 2023 ARB meeting.
All right, thank you, Sword. Second. Seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. Motion is approved. All right. That takes us onward. First, I will just have a little reminder here for applicants that are here for items for action as well as workshop session. I'll talk about it again at workshops. Items for action. I'm going to ask that you please limit your presentation to roughly about 8 minutes for a first submission. If you're back again for a resubmission, roughly 3 minutes should be what you should be focusing on. Primarily a focus on this change since you did previously. One, because we do have a rather full agenda, I try to respect everybody's time here, and that's all. Get out at 11 o'clock at night. All right, that out of the way, we go to introduction and recognition of guests. Daniel, we got anybody we need to recognize?
No, we do not.
No? Okay. I'm very happy to see our new board members. Standing with Magnum. I was not here when you first started, so I want to welcome you personally. I'm sorry I couldn't do that after your first. All right, that out of the way, we have a consent calendar. We have no consent calendar items, and we move right on to items for action. All right, number 1 item for action is ARB 23 LOR 10 88 86 Cali Lily Port Solar Project. This is a applicant proposing to install 14 roof-mounted solar panels. John Mean represents the application. Or is yours, sir? I believe Daniel's loaded up your presentation.
Yes.
I have your PowerPoint. I have a PDF too. Is this, do you prefer this?
Exact same.
The exact same? Okay, so it's good.
It just,
Okay, cool.
so, yeah, we're proposing to do a solar project at 886 Calla Lily Court in Lorton. You want to skip to the next slide? It is 14 panels. I guess the map didn't show up. There's supposed to be a map there of the location. It's 14 solar panels. On the outside of the house, there also will be a combiner box, a disconnect switch, and a conduit, metal piping for the wiring to go from the solar panels to the meter for the home. So I have pictures of those items as well. Oh, there's the map. And next slide. And so this is the proposed layout for the panels. It is 14 panels. That is the most productive section on the, it's slightly southwest where the roof is. And there's another home directly to the left and to the right of it. That's why it's shaded. The purple there, kind of lower on the left, is shaded because of that house blocking the roof at where we're proposing to put the panels. Next slide. This is a view from the top of the roof. So this is where the historical area would be back here. This is where the roof plane, where the solar panels are, and then this is directly from the facing the top of the roof. If you're looking at the house, facing the other way, it's where it would be. Next slide. This is a sample of a project just completed in November, showing there's no conduit runs on the actual roof. That is a solid black panel. The wiring goes in through the attic and then comes around the side. Can't see it here, but I have another picture in the next slide with the conduit run. So it goes through the roof into the attic, outside the attic, and this isn't exactly what the conduit would look like for the proposal at 886 Calla Lily Court, but it's very similar. We always try to keep the conduit close to existing features to make it blend in as much as possible. Next slide. And then this is the combiner box and the disconnect switch that we will install. There was actually, can you go back one slide? So this is what it looks like. The combiner switch and the disconnect switch next to the meter. And then that's just a zoomed in picture of it. And that is all I have.
Before we get to our questions, first I have to ask if there's any member of the public here that wishes to comment on this item for application approval. Seeing none, I would then turn it over to our ARB members for any comments or questions they might have. Mr. Burns.
Yes. One of the bugaboos about solar panels in historic districts is they look like random rectangles popped up on a roof. And solar panels are getting better all the time. And there are some solar panel systems that have panels that fill in the planar surface of the roof on the section that it's mounted on, so that it doesn't look so like random panels stuck on the roof. Do you have that feature, and could you use it in this location?
We do not have that feature. That, I believe, it's a shingle that integrates the cell technology, the photovoltaic cell technology. We do not have that, and it is not as efficient, and it's extremely expensive to do those. That does exist. It is out there. The technology is still being worked on. For this, it really is blocked by that other house a lot, and so it is difficult to see from where the historic area is. But to answer your question directly, no, we do not have that technology.
My comment for the board's consideration is that we should think about better systems for use in historic districts.
I would agree with Mr. Burns that obviously it's an evolving technology, and the problem is that it seems like it's constantly changing with efficiency and cost. I think with this one, at least personally for me, where it's located and the fact that it's on structures that are already, I mean, we've got a property that is, we meticulously designed a surrounding dialogue around it, so I think this one's gonna get lost in the sea of other development in this area.
I agree, in this use, in this location, this building is not an egregious use. But I want to raise the issues that those are very clear.
It's a good guidelines topic. Any other comments from anyone?
I have your drawing in video 3, that's a roof plan. And so I see the panel is on one side of the roof. And disconnect is on the other side of the, right? So there's a green line showing the contour that is going across. So you mentioned about you're gonna bring the conduit into the attic. So the conduit is not really going over the ridge.
It is not. It is, oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Just wanna know how you, what your plan.
So underneath the solar panels, there is a box that we run all the wiring through that, and that goes into the attic, and then the wiring runs through the attic, and then it drops down underneath the soffit on the other, so these solar panels are here, the meter is here. This is where we need to install the combiner box and the disconnect switch. So it runs through the attic here and then drops down to the meter.
There's a penetration point from the box through the roof to the attic.
There's a penetration here on the roof where the solar panels, underneath the solar panels where this red box is right here. And then underneath the soffit for the roof, it comes straight down to the meter where we install the combiner box and disconnect switch.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add, I didn't see in the package the photos that showed the vantage points from the roof line. So if I missed those, apologies, but that was very helpful to see because I noted that it was at the extreme northeast corner of the overlay district. So it was helpful. And just for others, it might be helpful to always include vantage point shots like that so that we can see exactly what the view from the structure is toward the historic.
And we don't normally get the rooftop photos from the they're gonna get placed. That was actually, yes, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
We were working as a team, and so one of my coworkers sent in the package, and then I put this together. But I will make a note of that to include the rooftop photos for any future submissions.
Thank you.
Like if I can add, in that case, also show the location where the electrical connections could make. I don't think we have a picture of that side. That would be helpful. Ideally, a line drawing showing where your conduit comes out of that soffit down to the per box.
We're in a historic building. We would expect a lot more scrutiny from us on those types of details.
Yes, sir.
I don't think Ms. Murray's, I heard a flip flack, but I didn't think there's, at least we don't have anything.
I have joined.
Do you have a comment, Elise?
No, I do not. I just wanted to
Okay.
let you know that I can, you can probably see me and I can see and hear you.
Yeah, I can see you. You're just not on the screen that the board is looking at yet because of the presentation.
Excellent.
Fine by me.
Options I've given to you in your annotated agenda. Mr. Zelman.
Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve action item ARB 23-LOR-10 located at 8886 Callaway Court, Gordon, tax map 10711070002 in the Gordon Laurel Hill MOA eligible area for the proposed installation of 14 roof mounted solar panels as submitted and presented at the December 14, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement of Lorton, Laurel Hill eligible district and zoning ordinances 3101 historic overlay districts.
A motion, if I can say. Seconded by Ms. Orr, just heard her off the corner of my ear. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Hearing none, the motion passes. Daniel will be with you in the coming days to talk about, to get your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
you.
Yes, Daniel, I love this annotated, Jim. Thank you. All right, our next item for action is ARB 23 LOR 09 8449 Reformatory Way deck. This is located at 8449 Reformatory Way in the North Laurel Hill MOA eligible area. The applicant is proposing the construction of a freestanding deck consisting of an uncovered portion of a screened proposed patio will be constructed under the deck staircase or be constructed by the side yard. Mr. Paul Kim represents the application. Mr. Kim?
Good evening, board members. My name is Paul Kim. I'm the homeowner of 8849 Reformatory Way. My house is located in the Laurel Hills Way. Next slide, please. And as mentioned before, we are seeking permission to build a 31-foot by 16-foot freestanding deck, a 31-foot by 16-foot patio underneath the deck, and a 16-foot by 16-foot screen and porch, which would be on the east side of the deck. And in the side yard, we would like to build a staircase that leads from the driveway to the backyard. Next slide, please. This is a photo of my home. On the left is a front yard view. On the right is a Google satellite view. In the bottom right corner is the Laurel Hill house. And over here with the red flag is my home. And as you can see, there's a line of trees in front of the Laurel Hill house that would obstruct the sight lines to my home and the backyard area. And there is also a line of trees over here and here that the HOA has planted, which when they're fully grown in should also obstruct that view line. Next slide, please. And this is a copy of our plat with the proposed structures marked in red. And this is photos of the Laurel Hill house. This house is approximately 700 feet from my home. As you can see, it is surrounded by trees. Please. And these are photos from in front of the Laurel Hill house. And the house marked by the yellow arrows is my house. And this is from the service road that's probably in front of that tree line. You can see my house marked in yellow. And this is a closer view, and you can see the line of trees planted by the HOA. And this is a view towards the Laurel Hill house. This is a photo of backyard of my house currently. And these are the blueprint drawings of the patio section. The screen and porch section will be over on this side, at 16 feet by 16 feet. And there's a uncovered deck area that's 15 feet by 16 feet. These are the deck stairs that leads to the backyard. And this is from the stairs that lead to the build of the side yard. And some stepping stones that lead from there to the stairs to the deck. And over here is the patio. This will be a concrete patio topped with light blue flagstone slabs. And this is blueprint drawings of the porch, the screen and porch, and the deck. The deck is approximately 10 feet off the ground. And as you can see, it has the A gable and the screen and porch. And on the side view, there will be one skylight on each side of the gable. And my proposed project is similar to approved projects for two of my neighbors. As you can see on the photo on the right, they're diagonal diagonally behind my home. And they also have a similar porch structure and deck. The only difference between their projects and mine is their porch structure is on the garage side, where my porch structure will be in the living area side of the homes. And in terms of material, deck surface will be covered by composite deck boards that are silver in color. The columns will be wrapped with white PVC trim. The porch screens will be black aluminum screens. The screen porch will have
Alexa, turn on the light.
Pella French doors, which match the existing doors on the house. The deck trim will be white PVC. The railings for the deck will be black railing to match the existing railings on the home. The patio will have this light blue flagstone slabs, and there'll be LED lights stairs. And for the side yard, we are proposing a staircase on the side of the yard. This is approximately a 11-foot drop. And as you can see, it's a pretty steep angle horizontally and then also vertically. And this is a architectural blueprint drawing of the proposed staircase. It will be 17 feet by 4 feet, 4 foot by 4 foot landings at the top and bottom of the staircase, and 6 stepping stones between the side yard staircase and the decks. At the end? Yes.
All right. Before we get to members' comments and or questions, I'll ask if there's any member of the public here who has a comment on this item for approval. Seeing none, we'll go to the members for any comments and or questions they might have. Ms. Hammack.
Did you put this presentation together yourself?
Yes.
I think you did a really good job. Yeah, it's really thorough. Appreciate it, especially yellow arrows. Everyone can take note. It's really helpful. I think your property will look better after these. Right now, it's the elevation appears unfinished.
Thank you, Ms. Hammack. Any other members? Mr. Burns.
Yeah, we approved these houses, so it's kind of hard for us to get upset with the decks that show out. We have on the
I'm
second
sorry
floor.
that it looked unfinished.
So absolutely correct.
That option was told to us when it presented.
Yes.
Owners could come and add decks.
So we're kind of stuck with that. You didn't mention, but there is within the view shed and pretty prominently visible, one of the original guard towers.
Yes.
Which is, I think, look, you had it there for a second. I was going to say it's that little blue rectangle. You can go back. Here, keep going. No, you had an aerial photo.
Yeah, an aerial that had it on the.
That had a nice green, yellow arrow pointing at the historic house. That should be there. Stop. Okay, that blue rectangle in the upper right quadrant, and then casts a shadow to the north is the guard tower.
Sort of gray.
This?
Yeah, that. Thank you.
My guard tower. So
Excuse me.
Imagine that, yes, yeah, okay. So, it's not just the house, it's also the dark tower that's in the view shed. You had mentioned wanting to emulate the two townhomes that have rear porches that we have already approved.
Yes.
I believe from your photos that you showed us that your gable on your painted porch is a much higher pitch than theirs. So I was just curious as to why you chose the high pitch.
I am not sure, what their, pitch is like.
Well, if you look at yours, right, and then if you go to the photograph of theirs, theirs is a much more background pitch, much less prominent, less competition with the main gable on the end of the property.
Okay.
And that was,
I was thinking about that too, and I think that's partially because he did mention that this one is going on the opposite side compared to the ones going at the garage, and if you look at the other ones, they're fighting with the roof, a different roof line. If they did something higher, they would have never come to us with something that high.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the one reason why we were even seeing, because I was wondering that too, because just in general.
it just struck me as a very prominent look at me kind of roof pitch, particularly with the decorative triangular forms in it.
Okay.
It just struck me as something that competes with the overall brick design of the rear of the house, which is fairly simple.
Okay, I think, so, that was, prepared by the contractor, for the size of pitch of the roof, but if you could, look back to the photo. I think that they designed that so that it fit in, the.
Does it match the pitch of the main gable?
I am not sure.
It appears a little steeper, and I feel much more comfortable if it matched the pitch of the main roof.
Okay.
That's just my comment. I don't know what anybody else feels about that.
I don't think there's anything gained by covering up plain masonry visually. I don't think it makes it a better than covering up the space under the windows.
Comments. Looking at the elevation, that there is no existing building elevation overlay on the background. I kind of hard to see, and I did overlay myself, and I found that the proposed roof line will conflict with window, so it doesn't seem going to work. That's my first concern. The second is, so by doing this, you covered up most of the window and the where you can view out. And so I was questioning like why you choose to make them reverse compared to neighbors' case.
Because I wanted outdoor access through these doors. This is the family room area on the first floor. So I wanted to go directly out into the covered portion of the deck. Whereas my neighbors, what they did was they put the roof structure over the garage. So one neighbor had kind of like a hallway constructed that went from these doors to the covered area. The other neighbor doesn't have any roof structure covering these doors.
You want to be able to go right out into the coverage.
Yes.
I don't have a problem. I think that it will look nice on the back. We had one fellow came through that had problems with setbacks and had to go back and redo everything. So just check on your setbacks before, because by creating that screen porch area, Fairfax County sees that as a room. It is no longer considered a deck, and so it has a different setback than a deck does.
Okay.
So.
And that's very sound advice. The gentleman who came in was very upset with his contractor. So I mean, that was John, so much under my one comment I really had on this, because I was concerned about how it looked with the other ones and material wise, so I appreciate you bringing those photographs. I agree, it was kind of an excellent presentation. It really helped us understand the whole project. I was kind of imagining, and that's something that I don't know from lack of drawing information. I was wanting the pitch of the roof for the closed-in porch to match the. That's really my only thing. I think that would be more consistent.
If I could make a comment regarding, it is a very well put together application with one exception. The two-dimensional line drawings are missing context. So we see an elevation, but we don't see it relative to the house. I think the assumption is that gable screen porch lines up or centered on the back of the gable portion of the house, and it's not. It's shifted off to the right. So it's going to be, I mean, I can envision it. I think it will look fine, but it would help to have greater context, not so much for you, so much as the board going forward and maybe staff, if we look to have that, any sort of porch elevation or any sort of addition should have the existing stuff behind shown for us to be able to make that judgment.
Members, Ms. Murray, I want to call you out. But okay. I can't see you. We got the presentation up, so I wanted to be certain.
No, I will make noise when I want to.
Okay. Absolutely, ma'am. All right, well, I would entertain a motion by any of the members. Obviously, we can approve with modifications as well, not conditions. Remember, we can help Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB -23-LOR-09 located at 8449 Reformatory Way, Wharton, tax map 107109D lot 0007 in the Wharton Laurel Hill MOA eligible area for the proposed construction of a deck, patio, and exterior staircase as submitted and presented at the December 14th, 2023 ARB meeting, subject to the following modifications. At the pitch on the roof on the enclosed porch be no steeper than the pitch of the gable roof of the main house. On review of the materials and with the approved modifications, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the memorandum of agreement of the Wharton Laurel Hill eligible district and zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Zellman. Seem to be any discussion. Let's make sure it's one with modifications. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ms. Murray was up to 4 as well, and any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kim. Thank you. All right, our next item is ARB 23 HOL
Touch with you.
45.
Have a good night.
7204 Beechwood Drive Edition. This one is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the construction of a one-story rear side living addition. Mr. Jeremiah Huff represents the application. Sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Burns. I know you. Yes, yes. Sorry, I always forget it. Mr. Burns, you have to read your statement.
Yes, sir. I'm John Burns under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-15H. Declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD and specifically state the following for the December 14th, 2023 ARB meeting. 1. Action items ARB 23-HOL 45, 7204 Beechwood Drive Edition, and ARB 23-HOL-41, 2106 Martha's Road Screen Porch at Pergola, and workshop items ARB 23-HOL-46WS, 7302 Ripon Road Edition, and ARB 23-HOL-47WS, 2208 Glasgow Road Editions involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2, the nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in Holland Hills HOD. 3, I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. or I am able to participate in the transactions fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Burns. All right. Up first.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm back. Last month I showed the revised edition, which is a side edition instead of the two-story edition. So we have updates addressing some of the issues. We can go through the drawings. Updates on the slope of the roof, how far down it is, and some of the clear stories on the backside and then the roof edge. So there's the plan. You can see this is the existing structure still that addition that was done early on. That's our transition space. Now, instead of 8 stairs, now 5 stairs up into the addition. The front entry hasn't changed at all from the last time as well. Still one rise or lower than the existing structure. The roof is down 7 inches. All right, so in this elevation, you can really see how far we've are sloping the hill a little more. Brought it down about 20 inches into the hill. In this elevation on the existing transition space, they're proposing to cover up the low window. We have a comment on from the ARB, DRC, sorry, our community design review committee. And probably better than see the stairs to the window. The slope of the roof is now 2/12 instead of 3/12, so it's a lower slope roof. And this transition space previously had a very steep transition, just enough to pivot it up to give head space up the stairs. Now we're showing a flat roof there. And on the western elevation, these clear stories were another comment from the DRC was trying to connect the clear stories, make it look more like a ribbon instead of individual punch holes. So on these 2 void spaces, we're proposing just some wood infill panels, something similar to how Michael Cook treats some of the infill panels. Sometimes we're thinking a solid color. Elevations. Here's the elevation to the addition over the existing. And the south elevation, which we didn't have previously, this is the master suite. Kind of sloping elevation here. We do have an entry door here, so we're going to have to do a step down probably. It's probably just stone steps. Keep the elevation drop lower so we don't need a railing. It's kind of sloping a hill, similar to what's going on the existing structure. Kind of level that up, place it on that slope. And so you click on the next one. You see, we're going to keep the edge profiles in 2x4. Yeah, 2x. Previously, they're showing a wider. That covers updates.
All right, if there's any member of the public here that would like to comment on this item or application. None. I would turn to the ARB members for comments and questions on the submission. Mr. Kalinsky.
And well, I think the applicant has done a great job of responding to our workshop comments. Lowering the structure deeper in the ground solved a lot of those issues. My one question, just something that's not defined on the drawing, is the type of siding that you're intending to use.
So the new siding will be 1x6 cedar tongue groove.
Yeah, maybe you did have it.
And it'll be butt jointed.
You know what I'm sorry, but the application drawings that we had at least from a week ago.
Yeah, the week ago ones did not have it.
Okay,
Yes,
so
you're
they're
correct.
not-
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So the ones you're seeing now are actually updated from the ones you probably.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Read the comments ourselves.
Something roof siding 5/8 finished. Sure, okay.
And this is the existing structure we're proposing to put that siding on this transition space, but it was added after the original structure.
Okay, well, good, you have it addressed, that's fine. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kalinsky.
Procedural question. So you presented to us last month and then you went to the community design group and then you'll come to us today and then you go back.
We don't have to go back to them again. Yeah,
Okay.
we're kind of going backwards, probably what we should be doing.
I don't know.
But we're trying to get it in for permitting
I'm not gonna add some clarity on that. So while there is the design review committee for Holland Hills, when Holland Hills was made a historical play district, it's being very clear by the county that two entities, we're separate. And so while the opinions of the DRC, we sometimes obviously can be submitted, provided by an applicant or one of our applications, we can take them to note. They aren't required for our review, nor do we have to agree with them. So I agree, it's
Do you have to
definitely,
give them great weight.
we can absolutely give them a great weight if we wish to, but at the same time, I would say personally, I disagree with them in some situations.
They felt that that connector portion should be less glassy and more solid. It would be helpful for me. I think hopefully this will get approved today, but in the future, if we could do existing, previous proposed and revised on one page. Like I know we have it in the computer from last month, but if we could just see, this is what you saw last month. This is what we're doing today. I think that would just help us visualize. Now I'm wondering what did that connector piece look like? Did I have thoughts about it?
No, I did actually. It's so interesting. So
The guide is like, oh, I would like that lighter because then it would lead us to like my design theory. That is that's what you do when you have a vision, you create this.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth where we want to. I'd like to offset the stairs a little bit, have a little bit of space there, get some windows, maybe put some plants. We've gone back and forth.
Well, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, my recollection is that this is an existing structure being adapted to this is the issue. You know, if this were greenfield and it was only the original house, this addition, you know, I would like it to be more like a hyphen that you look through or something like that. But that's not what he's starting from. And so he's limited by what's already built. And so that's
I do think though, that Holland Hills is weird like that, but it's both a level of intimacy with it, but also a level of openness in the houses. The way the windows are in most of the structures is very open into seeing into your home. And so the idea that you wouldn't want to have more glass there to see steps, like you already see so much into the homes elsewhere. It's, you know, other than the fact that you go around the back to enter, I immediately, I had to go off, obviously because there were recording issues and I wasn't here for the last meeting. That was an interesting thing that I saw when you mentioned that they're like, oh, we don't want to see the steps. And I'm not, again, I think with Mr. Burns, I'm also not hooked on that that's, no, I must see the steps into your new addition. It's just interesting because I would have more focused on keeping it more light and airy. But it sounds like you've addressed the rest of my colleagues' comments.
one other thing that I find interesting, and I'm glad to see it, is that the new work has a different siding pattern than the historic. And so it's pretty easy to just look at it at a glance, figure out what's historic, what's new. And that's something that we don't often see. It's
It's still a high level of material. No?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make the same argument with party plank, but it wouldn't work.
Well, yes.
Ms. Orr.
I have a question for you. So those drawings are different than what we received. Are we approving those drawings or what we received? Because this is a thing that is a problem at times.
I would recommend making a motion with a modification specifying what is being approved, because that is what we do our conformance check against, is the motion that is made. So it is against the most recent version of the plans. And if this goes back to the DRC and there's subtle changes, but we don't need to bring it back to you, I can still approve it, as long as that's specified by whoever makes the motion.
Well, the motion itself is say as submitted and presented at the meeting. It could be helpful for us to highlight that in particular, the notations made on the plans brought to the presentation to us.
Right.
And sometimes we do have sets that have side-by-side comparisons, but that's usually a presentation, not a set of plans on the drawings. We usually get a presentation that'll drop them out. For future Holland Hills references, we do like those. Mr. Kalinsky.
I can't quite see it, but the drawings that we had a a date of October 27th. Is that the same date or is there an updated date in the title block there of the A201 designation?
Definitely an update.
I send out to the board what I receive at the 2-week cutoff. And then this is what was submitted for the presentation upload. So there are like minor, I don't think there's substantial differences. There might be more information. But you would like the approval to be linked to this set that you're seeing, that just needs to be specified in the motion. Right, right. Which, and it's more helpful for staff because then we know what we are comparing to. Yeah.
I guess the only question is, since that set of drawings and this set of drawings have the same date, how do we distinguish between the two?
Because I'm the one that does it, you can say the presentation, the plans presented in the presentation. And I have the presentation and I will know.
Put our faith in Dan.
And if there's anything that is over the zoning ordinance allows staff to approve with substantial conformance, if that's a moving target. If there's anything that's substantially different, that's when we bring it back to the meeting. We don't approve it, we hold it. So the permit wouldn't get issued. So I don't think that is going to happen, but if this goes back to the DRC, there's substantial changes from what you see before when the permit comes in, I would flag it and then you would have to come back to the ARB.
That's true. That's the one risk you do run going down here. Coming back. Yeah. And then potentially having to come back to us. Hopefully not, but. You know. And I was kind of in the past, we've actually had a member of the PRC here who's spoken on behalf of the PRC on application. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Same with Morton.
Mr. Chairman, a question actually for Mr. Zellman. Because the motion to approve says, as submitted and presented at December 14, 2023 ARB meeting. Does that cover the fact that these drawings are different from the ones that were in our review packet?
Arguably, yes, but I think that language is
Big.
is implying that they're the same in my mind. So I would probably make a modification.
No other comments, Mr. Burns? I feel like you might
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Just can't make it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-23-HOL-45 located at 7402 Beechwood Road, Alexandria, tax map 093304 lot 0217 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The proposed construction of a one-story rear side living space addition as submitted and presented at December 14, 2023 ARB meeting, subject to the following modifications. Note that the drawings that are approved are the drawings actually presented at the meeting tonight, not the drawings that were submitted for review. On review of the materials and with the approved modifications, proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Very good motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Kalinsky. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good help.
I guess we look at the DRC.
All right, our next item for action and last is ARB 2023 HOL 1. Typo there, Daniel, is that correct? The 2023.
That is a typo.
Okay. ARB 23 HOL 41, 2106 Marfa's Road, Screen Porch in Perula. This is in Holland Hills Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the construction of a new screen porch in steel Perula. Rolla. Ms. Christine Kelly represents the application. Ms. Kelly, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you all too. This is back for the second review and I've responded to the comments from the first review. I'd like to go through, I'll take you quickly just back through the project very quickly. We have a new
screen porch addition and a new steel pergola on an existing patio. This is the existing front of the house. This is coming around the side of the house. It's the screen porch will be in the back off the bedroom wing right here. Screen porch right here and the pergola here on the existing patio. Closer views of where the porch and the pergola will go. Was a view for the steel pergola. This is the floor plan. The steel pergola is detached from the structure. It's freestanding and the screen porch. One of the main comments was tilt over the slope of this roof, so it didn't exceed the slope of the existing roof, which I did, as well as speed up the eave-line so that it matches the thickness of the eave-line of the existing house. And also to align the header with the existing window header, which I did that as well. Those were the changes that were requested. Welcome your comments.
All right. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to the members for their comments and or questions.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate you walking through the changes. Again, the difficulties last meeting, Summer and I was having to piece together some of the what was discussed on some of these. I don't have any real substantive comments from yourself. Whiskey, you look like you're about to go put your hand up.
So it's, I mean, this is there's a lot of complexities to this one. But I think it's handled well. First, the pergola is independent and reversible easily, so I'm really not concerned too much about how it affects the nature, the historic nature of the house. But I think it's fine as designed, and I think the improvements combined with the porch design, I kind of appreciate the fact that it's not impeding any of the windows. It's not covering up any of that. It's covering up a blank wall, which is part of the vocabulary that Goodman used to design. But it's this house it's not a prominent one. It's you don't seem to be losing anything, and you're still able to have the attached porch work there. Now, the existing stuff, the additions that were done before, those add the complexity just because they're probably wouldn't be approved today as they were built back then. So, but that's neither here nor there. That's not what we're judging here. So.
We're only leaving that existing wall inside the screen porch exposed.
So I think it's, a slight touch to the existing building is the best way to handle this.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I appreciate the positive responses to the comments from the last session. I think the changes are subtle, but I think that they improve the overall design. And I'll just repeat a question I had before. Are they sure that they don't want a direct connection from the house, that they're okay to go outside?
We had many discussions about it.
Just wanted to make sure.
I completely agree with you on that.
Okay. It's the homeowner's choice.
No other comments? Yeah, Mr. Belisky.
All right, Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 23 HOL 41 located at 2106 Martha's Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933040063 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed construction of a screen porch and steel pergola as submitted and presented at the December 14th, 2023 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have the motions are second. Seconded by Ms. Gamick each time. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Oh,
The opposition? Abstentions? None, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Kelly. And look, you're back. So now we move into our workshop session. All right, just for a reminder for folks who are here for workshop session, similar to the items for action, we ask that presentations be kept roughly about 2 minutes. However, there is no opportunity for public comment. After the 4 minutes of discussion, not one up for vote. So we have 4. Ms. Kelly, welcome back again. And ARB 23 HOL 46 WS 7302 Pond Road Edition. And this is a proposed addition in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. Regular beat.
Yes, and this project actually was before the board previously with another owner, but they, after we finished the drawings, they found another house that they loved and moved. And then the couple that bought this house had to proceed with the addition in it, but in a bit of more minimized than what you originally reviewed. Has been here before, but I would come back and discuss it again. It's right on Ripon is right as you enter Holland Hills. It's right off that road. What we're doing is infilling that courtyard with a new kitchen addition. Previously, we were adding on also a bedroom addition, but now this project is just the kitchen addition, infilling the existing courtyard. This is a shot of the front of the house from the street, and the next series of pictures will just take you around the left side of the house to show you where we're infilling the courtyard. Another view of the front of the house, around the side, and then a more closer view. This is the existing courtyard where we'll be adding the new kitchen addition. Here's a floor plan of the existing house. We have living, the existing family room, bedroom wing, and in addition, that was done. I'm not sure when it was done, but this is another bedroom, bathroom, bedroom closet, bathroom addition, and here's the existing courtyard. A new design. We're bumping out 6 feet for the kitchen addition to get windows and a door out to a new patio. And then this will, right now the kitchen is located right here. We're moving it all into this new addition, and this will remain bedroom, closet, and bathroom that we're doing with some interior renovations. On a lower level, we'll have a crawl space, and we'll be rebuilding this existing retaining wall. It's building a new retaining wall to support the patio on the upper left. This is a view of the front of the house where you can see where the 6-foot addition just pokes out slightly. We'll be matching the window pattern on the front of the house. We'll have a new retaining wall with a new railing. And you can't see the addition from this east side of the house. From the back, you'll see where it pokes up just 6 feet with the door coming out to the new patio, new railing over the retaining wall. And from the last elevation is west. You see the new. Additionally, we have clear story glass windows, and then the rest of the banks of windows are existing. We'll have a new retaining wall here to support a patio, just due to the fall of the grade.
Before, so remind us, so this was, I remember this being from before, did we go all the way to application approval, or did it just go to
No,
workshop, right?
It came through workshop.
Okay, I was just trying to, I felt like I didn't see it get all the way to, I was wondering if it
So
got
it's almost here.
almost here, okay.
Decided to move.
All right, so this workshop, obviously, Sandra.
Could you show me photographs where that railing's going to be in routine?
Yes. It's right here. There's nothing there right now. It's just like a bank of vegetation. And there really should be something there right now.
I know, but my gut is that a feature railings. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Christine answered.
Yeah.
This one's existing that we're rebuilding, and then the other one is just a little bit further up. This one is offset a couple of feet, and our new retaining wall is about 2 feet back from this one.
And yours will be wood picket.
It
Well, the fence on top of the mesa.
This street, the lots essentially do this.
Sure, okay.
And at the photograph, there you go. That kind of tells you, just to get a parking space, you have to have retaining level spot for car. I mean, that's how steep it goes up. And it's very common to have a retaining wall so that the lower level can open up to grade. And get further up the hill, you have to have the retaining wall to hold back the hill. And so that is not unique in this house. It happens in other houses that are this two-story, half in the bank design, and you just kind of need that wall. They're generally brick. Your new wall will also be brick,
Yes, it'll be brick.
and then safety reasons, you're gonna have to have something up there. It might help if it were a very minimalist design visually.
Or even would metal be better than a
We happy to take your advice on railings and propose some more options that might become more invisible or light feel.
I don't like the metal rope
The cable.
cable, yeah.
I think what would be helpful to reduce the visual height of that is for whatever the railing design is, that it be as transparent looking as possible when viewed from below.
And cable rails were not common back in
And-
the
No,
fifties.
it's
So
like
we need
you're-
something that's
Yeah.
more true to the times.
Well, you have metal railings at your entranceway up the path, right? From the photo that had the for sale sign.
Yes, but they're metal.
They don't meet
yes.
code, they're more,
It's just a guide rail.
I wonder if Goodwin even had the same code, probably not. When he was, there probably were unsafe conditions.
What we might consider today. So,
Yeah. They just survived before.
to my knowledge, there were no fatalities from like railings.
Yeah, kids. would
Well
love
done.
that.
We were tough.
But I mean, I just think maybe if Christine needs to find some
I can find something.
some rails in the neighborhood that are appropriate, if we could do any research or dive around and give us some examples, I think. Going forward, if the next one's an application, back it up with some information to show this would have been common.
Okay.
Or a modified version of something that would have been common, recognizing that safety regulations are different.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm especially, I think, sensitive to that in this neighborhood with this many properties, that we want to be consistent in what we're approving in there. And so if we can have some examples of what's there and we can be consistent with this project, and other projects going forward, I think that's gonna benefit.
We've done that even with retaining walls and other, like, I think we've been, the more we can have some ideas, this is reflecting
Okay.
the theme that we're seeing. And if there's anyone who would know a lot about what's going on, Holland Hills, you would. I'm actually happy that the new owner is reducing the proposed design. I think it's definitely a lighter touch in comparison, and I remember when we looked at this, it already looked, the existing format was a little weird, so the closing in, I think, is.
Maybe John, can you answer, how many split levels are there? Is this a common house type? I mean, this is
One that's lockable slip.
Okay, it is one of the model.
It is one of the
Okay.
original models.
Yeah, one of the earliest models.
I mean, I guess it makes sense with all the slope that they were dealing with, that he would have a split level in
It is
his
Holland Hills.
repertoire. Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one comment I have, you say that your dimensions on the drawing, the floor plan, that the main gable facing the street is, the width of the house at that point is 18 feet. The width of the addition, for the kitchen is 14. But you're showing the same, ridge height, which means that the slope on the roof over the infill in the courtyard is going to be steeple pitch.
It should not, excuse me, it should not be. I will double check that.
Okay, so it will hit slightly below the ridge of the main house.
Right, it should, yeah.
Okay.
Others, parts. Oh, yes, Ms. Bennett.
I just have a quick, and this is really strictly editorial on the drawings of the elevations. I think the west and the east labels are reversed.
Okay, I will check that. I'll correct it. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Moore.
I'd like to take a closer look on the west elevation that have the kitchen elevation. And the floor plan is all well done, amazing. I don't have any comments on that. But at this elevation, the kitchen window, it feel like they are one triangle window, the other triangle window, and then there's another window above the countertop. I do understand that I feel like they do want to bring a lot of light to the space through that window. But it doesn't, those windows doesn't feel like a part of this house language. And they kind of like each other.
It's a little busy.
It's a little bit busy, but I do also understand that you have a column in the middle of the ridge that try to carry the load underneath. But I was thinking perhaps just make it one big window and the column may be kind of part of like a much wider mullion. That way to consolidate that elevation. Okay, just perhaps.
I kind of feel like everything's up at like the top. It feels very heavy, up the window heavy, I guess. And obviously that's looking at it from an elevation perspective. In actual reality, it might not look that as heavy. Yeah, yeah, so you're not gonna be able to do anything beneath that, but.
I think it's not a skylight, right?
It does, yes.
Right.
But I will take a look at the window proportions and size.
Thank you. I know you well. I get the idea that they want to bring as much light into the space as possible, and I think that's good intention.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, it's kind of along the line of what you're saying. If you made that, I look at that and I say, that's a Chicago window. It's you know, the large light in the center, two operables on the side. But if that were 4 equal size windows, the outer 2 are operable, you get the same amount of light. The only downside is dead center on the sink is a vertical. And so.
Right, which I don't like to do that. So
Yeah, I understand that.
Great to break it up.
Yes.
Down.
And then just a comment, other houses in Holland Hills that have a door in a row of windows like you have in the bedroom. There's a crossbar in the door that matches the adjacent window. If that's already existing, fine, but if that's a new door, you might consider having a door made that has the crossbar.
Right, I agree with that. I've seen those doors.
Comments at this moment.
I
Yes,
kind of like
Zora.
to see the kitchen window. You know, I don't mind it. I don't mind it being 3, but everything else is so carefully monitored widths to match, and it seems like it should follow that same. I don't know. But when you start fiddling with it, you'll come to it.
I think it'll present the problem.
Yes.
You could either do 3 or 5 if you wanted the window in the center to be in line with the sink. 5, they'd be pretty skinny. 3, they'd be
Right.
a little wider.
Yeah.
Your suggestion's shrinking the middle one down and just do 3, 2 operable on each side. Yeah, so you saw that. Yeah, because I was gonna say 5, that would, I think that would go the opposite direction, just get even more chaotic in there.
If you look into the courtyard right now, there are 4 equal panels to go across there, which is the width of the courtyard. You can show the courtyard picture. I think 5 would be too many.
Yeah.
Particularly since we're gonna have to deal with lateral loads and brace wall conditions and gonna have to make it constructible.
Yeah.
So 3 may be the.
Oh, okay, the architect talked about constructing it.
Well, that matters. That's a minor detail.
I'm more concerned about just protecting it.
That Trace Street's put together with the guidelines for Holland Hills has historic images of this type 1.
Is there a railing in one of those?
And there's a
rooms?
railing. I mean, it's tall, but that could be inspiration, and then we could feel confident that there was historic documentation. And actually, it's white painted, which picks up the verticality of the white windows. Kind of interesting.
Any more feedback for Ms. Kelly on this one? Not seeing any more feedback on this one. I think we gave you a pretty decent
Yes,
down.
thank you.
As you heard before on the last ones, if you do bring, it might be helpful to bring the presentation showing before and after, kind of top and bottom on the presentation. That is really helpful, or at least in a focused area, because that really reflects the change made there. Not seeing any more. We'll continue on the Ms. Kelly show, which is ARB. Let's see here. I did the wrong one last time, Daniel.
Should be on 47 WA.
Yeah. Do I read the right one? Okay.
You did.
Okay. ARB 23 HOL 47 WS 2208 Glasgow Road additions. This is all in Hills. Applicants propose the construction of a front and rear additions and a new deck. Christine Kelly represents the application. All right. Yours again.
Is the entrance to Holland Hills is not too far inside the entry on Glasgow. Glasgow has 2 sections. There's a portion up here and then a curve between Hopkins and we're doing a lot to this house. We have an addition in the front that meets the front yard setbacks. We're proposing a new deck that we would have to ask for a special permit because of the dimension from the side yard setback. We have a new studio behind the carport that meets all the setbacks, and then we have a link and bedroom additions back here in this corner where we would have to ask for a special permit for this addition in the back. The existing front of the house with the carport, the existing house, there was an addition put on at some point. We'll take you on a trip around the entire house. It's another close up of the existing house, and the new addition will be right here. Another view of the carport. The studio will be behind the carport. This is where the new front addition is going right here. The new front addition, again, another view, it's right here. The addition will be right here. This design will stay unchanged. And coming around the back, the bedroom. So up these steps in the bedroom addition will be right here off of this area of the house. We're coming out 5 feet off the back of the house here to connect. These windows will be moved basically 5 feet out and to connect the bedroom addition, which will be over here, to the studio, which is over here. That's the back of the carport where the studio addition will be placed. We'll be locating the generator. The existing floor plan, this is the addition in the front. This is the existing house, living space and bedrooms. The kitchen was moved into this addition. And here is the carport. The new addition here in the front, the deck. And standing off the back of the house, we have the bathroom, bedrooms, the new hallway link, and the studio. Because of the slope and the grade, under this addition, we'll be doing a basement that will be used as a workshop. This is the proposed front addition. Playing off the angles of the existing addition here, as well as coming off the main roof with the butterfly and letting this addition kind of speak to the street front. This is the family room addition. And I've popped in a few little 3D views to help orient to the house. Here's a new. Please. Coming around the side, this is the family room and lower level workshop. This is the existing house, and then we're coming off the back with the butterfly for the new bedroom, bathroom, and workshop additions. Along the back of the house, this will be popped up as a butterfly, having that extra wall space with clear story windows to bring in as much light as possible. Bathroom, bedrooms, the hallway link, and the studio. Coming around to the south side is the existing carport in the studio. And then it just gives them larger, the 3D models just to help orient you to the side. This is the new proposed addition. Again, another view just showing how the roof lines. This addition will be coming off of the butterfly off the existing roof line. And this is the existing addition. New family room. And on the back, the butterfly coming off the main roof all the way across.
Right, Ms. Hammock.
You were describing the front with the large window. You feel that that's an addition and not the original portion of the home?
This part, yes.
Yeah, that's from the 70s.
I'm not sure when it was built. You know when it was built, John?
It looks like the 70s in the report.
Screams 1970s.
The report that Tracers did in the back, it actually lists additions that they must have found during permit research. So it says that this property has an addition from 1971, addition from 1990, and that the one from 1971 is on the northwest. So is that?
The carport was 1990. I was on the then DOC. And we moved the carport. I was
Well, I
not
guess-
there for the.
I guess that changes. So my gut instinct is that no new addition would extend in front of an existing primary elevation. With the understanding that that primary elevation is the original. If that front cliff or whatever, if that's from the 70s, perhaps that changes how we feel about it, but I still think it's from the 70s, but it's not comfortable with an addition extending to the front of the building like that. And
If we look at it on the plat, can we go back to the plat? It's the way that it sits on the side, I feel like it's not overtaking it, it's sort of meeting it. How it kind of zigzags off the front.
I can't even see where the original Holland Hills home is with all the roof lines. I don't know how this roof is going to drain. No, I can see it in plan, but when I look at it, it just looks so sandwiched and eroded, and the back almost looks institutional, the way it has the long glass doors. It almost looks like a classroom or something at the rear elevation. I would like no, I mean, I know they're probably running out of places to expand since it already has 2 additions, but I feel like if there's going to be any front addition, it needs to be pulled away from that glass window and set back a little bit. I don't feel it respectful to the original massing of the home, the way it extends forward.
I had a question. What is so you might not know this off the top of your head, but what's the total square footage of the additions and what's the total square footage of the house now? It almost feels like we're doubling the structure.
I don't have that on.
Okay, I didn't think it just. The original house is lost. And part of that is not, obviously, you're coming to us with new work on top of existing work. And so the house was already somewhat, the original home was already somewhat lost. And now I feel like it's kind of growing around it more. And so I was trying, when I'm looking at these drawings previously, trying to go, what can we do to call to the original Holland Hills home in a way that doesn't, feel almost productive. But yeah, I mean, if I had my druthers about it, it'd be only a rear addition, but that's just my spurs.
When these houses were built, they were relatively modest in scale. What's the biggest takeaway I get from this presentation is that it will overwhelm the scale and the massing of the original house to the point that it becomes unrecognizable. And that's not unique to this particular addition. There are other houses in Holland Hills that have become overwhelmed by additions, accretions, or whatever you want to call them. But this one will dramatically alter the scale and massing of the house. It already has one dramatically different roof form. This is going to introduce more, and so it is so overwhelming to the existing scale of the house that I would have trouble with it. And this is something that I don't think our guidelines for Holland Hills address adequately, which is these are modestly scaled houses, and how does one design new square footage in these houses without overwhelming the scale of the original? It's a conundrum.
That's what I was kind of getting at with
This feels like the first time I've had seating up and say, where's the house? Where's the original house? This is when we're all done. If this gets built as designed, it will be difficult. And you would ask, where's the original house? You're going to say it's the chimney mess.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to identify the original house.
Cost more, but almost demolishing that 1970s, instead of adding on and having all these competing roof forms, if one were to strip it back and put a thoughtful addition, maybe you could get the same square footage, but it wouldn't be so piecemeal.
Concerned about continuing a 70s language that is not that wonderful anymore. I don't know. So similar to what you're.
Yeah, it's totally the 70s motif. You can't miss it. That's no doubt. Other observations or comments?
I think this is a problem that the board would be tackling with the property values in this neighborhood are such that, and so most things are happening in Arlington. That, but like the property, the purchaser is spending so much money on this home that they want and expect a certain level out of that property. And yes, the original homes were very modest. They had one bath. But they were housed. I mean, they were priced that way too. They were for people coming back from the war, families, and now I would say these are priced for millionaires. So I mean, that's a social construct that we're not. That's not our purview to debate socioeconomic issues in the county. Our purview is to preserve historic fabric and the spirit of the historic district. So I think that this would be a detriment to the historic property. And
there are also, the other thing you brought up is there are setback variations that would have to happen for both. And I would say we have historically have not been very on board with recommending that setback variances be granted in these situations. And particularly, we're talking about two variations that would happen here. We've asked instead folks try to design within those setbacks that they already have and work with. And we've dealt with one that was built outside of it already, and we tried to work with them the best we could with that existing non-compliance they were living with. But I think I would be more open-minded to something that worked within existing setbacks and found a way to work around a more sensitive addition in some place. Because and some of it's mainly keeping and thinking not so much about just the home itself here, but about the whole historic overlay district. It's not just the single Holland Hills house we're thinking about. This is a neighborhood that has a historic feel and setting to it. So the house is also speaking to every other home surrounding it. And so I don't want a home that also kind of affects the dialogue of the neighborhood either. I want one to be more consistent with that too. So I'm kind of looking both inward and outward. What is the house looking like to the other houses that are maybe still more modest in feeling, or, you know, more gentle in their additions? And some of that is you're working with existing. But I think I would want to see more creativity in hopefully with the client that they could potentially do here. I mean, we definitely want to try to work with that. But the setbacks is really, for me, it's a tough to push against. They're there for a reason.
Mr. Zellman, in the previous workshop that we considered, mentioned that we should try to be consistent with other things. And I have to admit, this is not the only 1970s edition that has a little funky shit. Yeah. In fact, there's one whole house that's nothing but from the 1970s. But to what extent, in being consistent, should we suggest to homeowners that if you tear down part of your house and fix it, you know, that it might be more compatible? Is that something that this board wants to do in the interest of trying to preserve the overall historic character of the entire community? In real historic districts, when I say real, what I mean, old historic districts where the buildings are really old and they might have accretions, you know, a Georgian house with Queen Anne details, they want to take the details off.
Alteration.
Yeah, and things like that. You know, people might think of that. No, I'm going to take it back the way it would have looked at a certain time period.
That burning problem.
Yeah, I guess. But that's really going out there, you know, to suggest to someone that they need to tear down part of their house and do it over. I don't know that that's something that we have any authority to do. We have to deal with homes that pre-existing. This, when the historic overlay district, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Zellman, when the historic overlay district was started, it was anything that was already built is grandfathered. And so this addition is grandfathered. And so to a certain extent, we have to deal with that.
Right, but if they come to us and let's just say they wanted to demolish an addition from 2006 before it was a historic district, and the addition doesn't meet our current guidelines. I mean, it would not be incorrect for us to say, this is a modern addition, it's not removing historic fabric, it doesn't meet our current guidelines, like we're okay with it being demolished.
I don't have any problem with that. I think we have to decide. I think the problem may be if that's what we're saying.
No, we would never want
I
to
don't
require
think we
that.
can do that.
Yeah.
If we say we're okay with someone who wants to do that, I don't see any issue with that.
But then there is something from the 1970s is almost 50 years old. So you're right, we're not dealing with Victorian row houses, but at some point, one could argue that addition is part of the language of the organic development of the wind farm. That's very theoretical preservation,
Yeah.
you know.
I think at this time, though, when Tracy was looked at, these were found to be non-contributing aspects of these houses.
Yeah.
If I remember, I don't have it in front of me, but we had the same thing when we were looking at homes run acres. There were a lot of houses that were either going to have to be wholesale described as ineligible, non-contributing because of the amount of modifications, or have elements that we had to keep in mind. There was a wave of change that happened. And so as you're pointing out, John, as someone who's very familiar with HMP, there is apparently a wave of these 70s I don't even know how you describe the silly kind of roof lighted effect, we stayed at the house out of the same thing. I remember distinctly. So,
Or ski lodge.
but I don't think there's anything wrong with us suggesting that building off the existing addition idea. I'm not convinced that that's a good way to go. I think reflecting more of what was there in the 70s, I want to be more focused on what we can do to minimize our emphasis of that addition and focus on as much as we can the existing home in there. How can we be creative around that structure to draw more attention to, hey, the home's still there and you can draw your eyes to it. We've done that in the past with focusing obviously on the chimney, and that's the focal point. You can still find the whole of Bill's home when you're looking at it. And so if a client's like, hey, yeah, well, I didn't like that addition either, let's demolish it. They decide they want to do that. I mean, we're not telling them what to do. We're just kind of reacting to what we see as a challenge in an addition here. And this one has a lot of challenges because you're building off of an existing and adding a lot of square footage. It really is. And because it's broken up the two massing, it really is sandwiching the original house. That's what I'm having a hard time reconciling with personally.
And I've had years ago within the community had discussions with people about what is it we're trying to preserve here? Are we trying to preserve the Goodman community, or are we trying to preserve the community of contemporary design and allowing contemporary design within that contemporary design? And what I think you just said was that the 1970 editions were contemporary of that time, but they were still modernist. And this is not an edition that has 6-panel doors and divided light windows. This is still a modernist edition, but it is of a slightly different period, 20 years later, say, after the original house was built. And so, what are we trying to preserve? The modernist community or the Goodman aesthetic? And then this is a melange here. It's got some of both, and they're proposing to push it out in multiple directions, actually. It's a difficult design decision, difficult design challenge.
I'll give you a lot of negative feedback, not negative, like strong feedback. Yeah.
In her defense, I mean, she's got a client coming to her asking
Yeah.
a lot of this house, and I feel for you because they're going to push you to get as much as they can, and you're not going to put your foot down and say, no, you can't have that. I mean, it's going to be up to the boards. I think it's hard. It's hard.
I think there's definitely room to work in here, but I definitely think, obviously, I would hope you would come back for another workshop on this one, so we can talk about ideas and concepts.
To your point, what they're adding is not as of right. They're asking for,
Yes.
so that's, I would push back to your client. I mean, they purchased this property knowing that it wasn't zoned for this.
But I have 5 or 6 projects like this that go before the zoning appeals board per year, so it's not unusual to ask for setback modifications. So,
But also note that in the past, the ARB has recommended against setback incursions. So with the term
Variances.
they're called special permit.
Special push, there you go.
Okay.
Right, well,
But it's without knowing that the county would approve this, it's difficult for us to critique it.
and that's why you heard me say pretty openly, I'm not at this current case on board with us giving a recommendation for the special permit to me personally. I don't think that there's more you could do within the existing setback.
I would not want the board to put itself in a position where if we looked at this design and approved it, that the owner then could take it and say, well, the ARB said it's okay to build into the setbacks.
I think we have to do the first one first.
We have to do the setback
Yeah.
incursions first.
we have to do, I think it's a double, we do the recommendation and then we can do an approval of an application side by side. We've also done I think we've always done them in just the same night typically.
Mhm.
All right, thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing you again.
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Thank you. All right, takes us on to workshop number 3. It's ARB 23 LOR 11 WS 9514 Workhouse Way, building W13 alterations. This is located at the Laurel Hill MOA eligible area. The applicant's proposing improvements associated with the interior fit out of building W13 to allow food services by attendant. I'll let him speak to the rest of this. Herring is representing the application.
I'm Scott Sonser.
Okay, I was gonna say, wait a minute.
Yep. No, not Jeremy Herring.
Okay.
I'm Scott Sonser with the Department of Economic Initiatives in Fairfax County, representing Fairfax County, who's the manager of the site. I also have today Sam Gray, who's the co-owner of Bunny Man Brewing, who's our tenant in the structure that we'll have. So as already mentioned, this is the Laurel Hill MOA eligible district. I think we've been to this board a couple of times this year to talk about this project specifically, and I expect that really hoping that we will see you a number of times next year as well, not just to talk about this project, but other projects on the site. This is really exciting if you go to the next one for the W13 and W15 improvements, which are the projects we've talked about a couple of times this year, where it's county funding into these projects. This entire workhouse campus has had nonprofit funding and improvements over the years. Now we're having public dollars that have flown in or into the 13 and 15 project. There's additional projects coming forward. But really what's exciting about this one to me is this is some of the first private dollars and private investment into this site. And we anticipate there'll be more of those coming forward. So this was the overall project. W13 is the specific building we're mentioning today. I think if we go to the next slide. These are existing conditions, basically just from a couple of weeks ago. So it reflects some of the new improvements that the W13 and 15 project have had, including these new sidewalks and some improved landscaping. But this is, today we're primarily talking about this facade. This is the west-facing facade, the south-facing facade. Last time we were here, we spoke mostly about the east-facing facade, which has the exterior stairs that you approved previously. Those are on sort of the other side. Based on how the site is currently operating, this is sort of the rear entrance of this facility. This is the best picture from the southwest corner, and it's really this west-facing facade, south-facing facade we'll look at. Just to help you with plan view, if you go to the next slides, these are the existing sort of straight-on facade shots. And this is the south-facing. This is the new improved area and outdoor seating that will go to the Bunny Man Brewing site. And the west-facing facade viewed directly from Chainbridge Road around 120. I guess it's Ox Road through here, Route 123, which does have a lot of screening to screen that facility from the road. Go to the next slide. So primarily what we're here tonight to talk about are two new exterior installations that we would like to see on the site. The first is this area here. You'll be able to see a little bit better on the next slide, but this is an exterior exhaust fan. As I mentioned, this is the rear of the building, and so the kitchen and the food production area is just behind this window, and so this is the new proposed exterior exhaust fan to vent the area. On another future slide, I'll show you there's also proposed to be an installation of a gas meter kind of directly up here as well. Look to the next side, you'll see the side view. Yeah, it's the south facade. No changes are proposed on the south facade, but it does show you how far that extends out from the building at that angle. So we are looking at this exterior facade change on the side. Well, if you flip one more, we did look at other options. Many of the existing buildings on the site have vents on the roofs. And so we did take a look at exterior venting on the roof. Given the pitch and the newer safety considerations, if we were to put an exterior fan, which would look very similar to this one right here, we would need to install maintenance platforms on those roofs. And in addition, we would add a ladder in the exterior to be able to get up to those. So this was an alternative which we frankly thought was a much poorer alternative than just an exterior fan on the west facing facade. So those are the kitchen ventilation proposal and alternatives. If you go to the next slide, this is a little bit more of a close-up of where we anticipate the gas meter will be added. I think the submission we had mentioned, it was a relocation, but actually it's new gas to this location. On the W15 building, go to the next slide, has an existing gas meter, which is highlighted in the red, and it'll be a similar gas meter that Washington Gas, and that'll be going on to that western facade on W. That's the other exterior change for focus. That's most of it. I will ask if you could maybe go to the very last. You keep going. I think it's slide 14. Gives you a little bit more detail of the specifications and an example of what the proposed exterior fan could look like. Very last one. The kitchen ventilation specifications and a graphic of a similar type one that would be installed. All of this would extend. There's a box around the base of it, so it's primarily about 30, I believe it's 34 inches. It's what it extends from the side.
Could you go back to the plan view of the district so that I could see? I want to make sure I have I'm orienting myself properly.
Sorry, slide 3 maybe. Okay. But this is the structure we're looking at. This is.
And then point with your pen exactly where that exhaust fans would be. Okay, all right, good. I am thinking of that spot.
Yep, so it's from the way that the.
I wanted to make sure I
access, it's kind of in the back.
When I come into the space and how I would see it from an approach, and I wanted to make sure my mental orientation was accurate.
Absolutely.
All right, members' comments or questions on this?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Murray.
This is going to be seem kind of silly, but my family had this trouble at our old shore house. That fan is going to be facing very close to the area that's going to be landscaped and made an area for people to want to sit and enjoy themselves. Will there be an odor issue?
I don't believe so. Maybe I'll ask Sam or we can follow up. But I think part of what those exhaust fans do is they have the ventilator or the filters to sort of capture that air and any of sort of the grease or the food smells. There will probably be some food smells outside, but it really dampens, and that's part of the function of that large exterior fan.
And noise?
Don't know. I believe it's a relatively quite. Sam, do you have the specifics or the decibel levels?
I can't get specifics with the decibels, but I did ask the architect about that. First question was the exhaust gases coming from it, the 10-foot height of it, which is the reason I have to go through the first floor and out the second floor on the bottom was because of the height, and that's to make sure whatever gases are passing by and above. Second part of that was I asked as well about the noise from the fan. They said the answer I got from the architect was insignificant. And you can tell the seating area, say, is around the corner and offset by almost 18 feet from that grassway out to the seating area. If you go to slide right there. So that grass area is not a seating area. If you see where the little chairs and tables are out here, it's separated all the way to that corner and around the side where the fan would be from the seating area outside.
I think given the pitch and the dormers, it would be difficult to put mechanicals on the roof, and it would be literally undue attention to itself. And not perhaps not as easily reversible. It's just punching out the consideration of the applicant. Washing gas makes you put the meter there. I know your hands are kind of tied. You have to take on or but perhaps landscaping around it. I don't know what the landscaping plan Read is visually screen it, or is that?
I was wondering that too, because it looks like a rocket engine on the back of the house, the structure. But I get that there's not many options for where you can put it, to be honest. It's really, because the idea of taking out the roof of the dormers and everything seems crazy.
That's the challenge of adaptive reuse, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's
I think
absolutely what
you
is,
do.
we want use here.
I think you do have to make considerations that you wouldn't when you're changing use like this, right? Like use not ideal, but like a necessary.
You said this was gonna be the back, this is the kitchen area, this is, staff are ones that are gonna be using that door. I don't even know if I thought about fencing or something, maybe just a little bit of a bump out fence.
I was thinking more screening the utility box.
Yeah.
The gas company, but
That's all right, Mr. Burns and then.
Everybody's talking about this as the rear of the building off to the side. This is what faces Ox Road.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, this is. the
Right.
front. And so you're putting this big hunking thing sticking right out.
Yeah, so I mean,
And it's directly underneath the sidewalk, pedestrian sidewalk that's already in place. And also, you notice that it moved.
yeah, it did move from what we saw.
In the drawings that we were presented to review, it was to the left of that window, adjacent to the door. Now it's closer to the seating area. So what's up with that?
It was primarily to align it with the kitchen uses inside the space and being able to vent directly up from the proposed kitchen flat top area up to the deck.
And it is further away from the door frame.
but John, I gotta argue, yeah, it's from the front of Ox Road, but when are you gonna see that from Ox Road? I just, the sloping, the vegetation and the speed, it's almost impossible. Yeah.
I can understand that, but the county has taken great pains to have a pedestrian way along the east side of Ox Road. And they've got the rain garden just to the south of this, and the sidewalk connects through there. So this is a design pathway that the county's put in there. This is gonna stick right out into it.
But this is not
Yeah, I was gonna say,
gonna, he's been waiting patiently.
I have a few thoughts. One, we've been talking about this area for a long time. We visited it multiple times, and I think we're trying to encourage use there. I think that's something that we should be doing. And when I saw the alternative of putting on the roof and do platforming and all that, that's certainly going to be much more significant. And I understand a fan sticking out isn't great, but it's a lot better than the alternative. And with respect to the gas meter, I think there's ways to cover it up, but there's one on W15 too already. So I don't know if that's something we should really be jumping up and down too much about. But my main point is we're trying to encourage use and get people out there. And I think that's something we should always have.
Mr. Close.
Possibility to move it to the north side of the building. All the way to the left on that picture. It's a less pedestrian approach.
To move it to the other side.
Well, actually around the corner on the north.
So if you flip to slide 3,
Facing the parking lot.
go to the slide 3. So you're looking on this facade, or what are some considerations potentially to put it on this facade, which would face the parking lot area?
Yeah, it's just that building turns its back to that parking lot.
But
And it's more utilitarian on that side. And it may be a better option for it.
There are some other utilities on that side.
And
It's hard for us to evaluate this because we don't know what's going inside the building.
True.
Listen to this. They might have to totally reorient the kitchen to accomplish that, but I think that the suggestion is a reasonable suggestion. We've noticed that there's already a big electrical box on that side. And I think that's where the dumpster is going to be.
And John, to your argument about the sidewalk, there's the sidewalk right there. That's where the pedestrians are going to access the rain garden. Little sidewalk that we're talking about is hidden by those trees. That's so the folks that are walking down Ox Road, getting hit by cars going 60 miles an hour, they're coming from there. And
So you're saying that the sidewalk right next to the building is a secondary.
Yes, a secondary sidewalk. I'm not disagreeing,
That's a good point, good point.
but and I do like what Mr. Kalinsky suggested, that if it could be moved close to that dumpster enclosure area, that'd make a lot more sense. But again, we don't know the inside layout of the kitchen and everything everything that's being designed.
And the dumpsters are actually farther away.
That's-
This end rather than right.
My point though is that's the utility, and I think Mr. Klinsky said that that's the utilitarian side of the building.
And it's not facing the road directly.
It's not directly facing the road. And I think you said the mirror image, the gas meter is also on the parking lot side on the other building. Yeah.
The south face.
One more question. I think maybe some of the architects may be curious. I certainly am, but do you know what code is going to require a maintenance platform for exhaust fan as well as a hooped ladder to get up to it? Or is that a little bit of a?
Definitely the maintenance platform, and I believe the hooped ladder as well, but I will verify. We worked with Land Development Services to make sure that this would be code compliant. And so those were the references that they shared for the maintenance platform, and then permanent fixed lines if were necessary.
So, another possibility is to have a structure that goes into the roof as opposed to on the roof.
Well, I was looking, there actually is one in the roof already, I think. Isn't there?
But there are a number, and I think some of the pictures after that Q&A show a number of the ceiling vents that are on buildings in and around the site. Keep going to a couple. So you'll see there's a large vent. This is W12 orientation. So this is the building that we're talking about, W13. It would be on the back. We have these large vents. The direct.
Okay, then I might be looking at W12 that has one right at the top of the
Yeah, some
table
of these.
already.
Yeah. W12 has large ones.
Can we go back to that picture before?
Yep.
I mean, I might be in the minority here, but I'll throw myself out there. I don't mind. I normally don't. I mean, we got these tall structures, these tall vents on all these other buildings. You're only talking about one on one side. I understand it's not where all the other equipment is, but it's still on a staff entrance side of things. I don't have any objection to if we can move it to where all the other equipment is. I don't have a problem with that. If that would cause an entire interior redesign of the space, I don't think that that's something that I personally would not think that's necessary. It would be fine with where it is now. If it wouldn't require that and we could move it, I'm fine with that.
I'm not trying to be difficult saying it needs to be moved. I understand the economics of it all, but it is something people are going to question years from now. Why did they allow that after going to all this trouble to create this historic district, respect these buildings? Why did they allow that facing the street on essentially a front facade? I mean, I know it's not being used at in this case, and yes, landscaping screening will help, but it's not a permanent solution.
But I would argue that we would counter with, well, these buildings were empty and we need to keep the lights on. And this was an adaptive reuse project. I mean, this is like in the scheme of adaptive reuse projects, this is very minor and reversible, and it might not even stay here. And they could match the red brick and build a.
We have lots of extra brick laying around.
Oh, I mean,
I'll also point out,
totally, I think the justification.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Hammack, and then
can I
we'll.
make a point?
Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
We've always talked about these buildings as industrial buildings. That's the term that we've used over the years. And much as I don't like much as I don't like the aesthetics, it does fit with the industrial theme. To put it where it is now, although I would prefer to see it somewhere else.
Yes,
That's it.
Why are we just considering this now? I mean, this project has been going on for a while. Why all of a sudden do we need a vent in this location? I mean, this never came
I
up.
believe Daniel can answer that. Maybe not Daniel, I don't know, I'll put you on the spot.
Well, there was a code issue with the fan. The original fan was an interior fan. And there was a code compliance issue with that. And so then this was proposed. This was part of the larger exterior staircase project that you all already reviewed. And when the fan was run by Heritage Resources, we said that does not conform with what we saw previously or what the board saw previously. So it's now coming back. So the permit for the majority of the interior build out was issued, this mechanical work removed. And so they are here for the workshop because of the VDHR LHS requirement for being in Laurel Hill. So that is why we're seeing it.
How did they get, they hadn't come before us to get the exception to build this vent?
The permit was for all interior work. So the exterior components were removed from the permit. And so they'll be added in after.
Wall modification. It's inevitably linked to what's going on the inside. I mean, this is a holistic building. You know, you can't decide to put something here and then later on say, oh yeah, and we have to go through the wall out there. I mean, it's all part of the overall project. You can't divorce one from the other. That strikes me as strange. I mean, what were they thinking? That there was no impact to the exterior from the interior work?
I cannot speak to.
Well, I understand you
Yeah.
can, but I'm like, who are making these decisions?
I would say I think the most direct answer is, the county was upgrading the building to a shell to have a tenant. And now we have a tenant who is interested in bringing their facility to here. And so that requires some of that interior changes or maybe a more robust investigation of how the operation of that facility works versus a designer who's not building this to operate.
I would say, John, I think it's a lot of it's keeping it in our memory because we view so much of these, they came in waves. And some of it was just reviews to just get them viable for tenants. And I think a lot of it was, well, we don't know yet because we don't have a tenant to go. And so some of it was literally, concept ideas. And so I think we were looking at the bare minimum of activities that the county would spend money on. I'm not saying that that's all that's happened here, but clearly assumptions were made and then reality came crashing in. And so I'm glad you all chose to come for a workshop, not an application. So,
But the county gave these folks a permit to do this work, right? Without thinking.
No,
about
we have not permitted this exhaust fan or any of the kitchen or mechanical interior alterations.
So there's no design for the interior yet?
There is. There is a design that is not approved.
Maybe we could see it.
Yep, we could absolutely
I
bring
mean,
that forward with the application.
Right. We're seeing a manifestation of other decisions.
Yep.
And this is a bad quote from Prince Charles, but the monstrous carbuncle on the face of an old friend, I think it was describing an addition to the British Museum.
Yeah, it was the
It's
Victoria.
yeah, it's king, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's king.
He was Prince at the time.
Yeah, he was Prince for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is an unexpected change, and we don't understand the context of which we're being asked to potentially approve this. And that's a real challenge. You gotta go back and yell at the code people. How on earth did you think that this wouldn't have an impact on the exterior of the building?
But that might also help us understand the rationale for why this is a place, because if we know what the space is going to be used for elsewhere, then we can read it with the connectivity of the workhouse and where people are going to come in and where you want someone to come to. Because I get, yes, that is the original entrance, but the client's like, well, oh, we'll bring people around the front. They're like, they're never going to see that as the front.
And I think it's important for us to be firm about this, because as this gentleman pointed out, there are other projects coming down the pike, and we don't want them to come back and all of a sudden say, oh, we have to do this on the outside here because the county already said we can do this on the inside here. We need to get some understanding between our need to review and the county's need to approve permits, so that they work together rather than clash.
There's also the VDHR factor here too.
And
That's a whole nother, and we don't always align with their vision of what happens here either.
BDHR still have to approve this location on this building?
Yep, that's good for the taxpayer viewers. But as we recall, when we were reviewing the child care facility, we had some different views that didn't completely align with theirs.
But they were pretty strict about
Yeah.
penetrations on the side of the building.
And I do want to be clear in case maybe I misheard. We are not using tax credits for this project at all. So there is not that historic tax credit review with this project.
But there is a memorandum of agreement.
Yep.
That governs.
Yep. So they have been sent the plans and have an opportunity.
They have not commented yet.
Not yet.
The BDHR easement folks, I think, are more sticklers than the tax review folks.
But thank you. This is very helpful. And again, as Mr. Burns, I think as you mentioned, we anticipate that while this is specific to 13, we'll be looking at similar issues in any of these buildings where that food and beverage use, particularly food production use, is soft. So that would be W15, that building there, W12, W1, that we expect based on the master plan and the uses that are approved for the site or intended for the site, that will have these similar kinds of challenges. So this is very helpful to.
If we approve
think about
event,
this.
we should create an established pattern, and the buildings are all like that. And then we should think about that. If we put an event here, if we want the event to take place at every other building.
Yeah, the only other thing I was gonna say is if we're attempting to encourage use, other people who are thinking about coming here are gonna be watching what we do with this, and if they don't feel like they can do business there, they're not going.
No, so that's where we are. No, I mentioned this as well too. I'm sure being for stickier. Everyone here wants to see a use for the evidence. That's the only way this location is going to thrive. And so we just want to find something that's going to be consistent and sensitive to the property. And so I'm glad you brought it this week, have this conversation out here at a workshop.
And it's good to have it now so we don't have future train wrecks.
Yeah.
And thank you. And when we approach next time, you're right. We've been a couple of times and we sort of have these incremental reviews. And so the next time we come back for the approval, we'll give you the broader context of what's proposed in the space, how it's intended to be oriented and used, where the front door is, et cetera. So you can see it in that whole context.
Great.
Thank you.
Frankly, I'm looking forward to having a beer with you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the last workshop, ARB 23, LFK 14WS, 1102 Chainbridge Road, Pool Gazebo. This is Langley Court, Historic Overlay District, representing construction of Pool Gazebo, Mr. Jabori.
Yes, good evening, members of the board, Kayvon Jabori with KJ Associates. We're here as a follow-up to our last month's meeting in regards with 1102 Road pool revision and the addition of so-called gazebo. May I ask you to go to slide number 5? They all know about it. So the board had a few concerns last time. The members wanted to see actual today pictures of the site progress, how the site and this pool and the structure that we are proposing to add is viewed from both Chainbridge Road and Georgetown Pike. So we're providing quite a few pictures regarding that. And the board members asked for the project architect to be present if there were any questions specifically regarding the structure. So Mr. Yusufi is here. As you recall, he's also the designer of the building that is on the roof already. This is the frontage view of the property on Chainbridge Road. Next slide, please. We're going towards 193 or Georgetown Pike. This is another picture of the same frontage view. Next, please. And further up, that's the site entrance with the poster on Chainbridge Road. Next, please. This is further, very close to 193, looking at our project. As you notice, the owner or the developer has planted plenty of evergreens along the perimeter of the site. Next week. This is on site. We are on the right side if we are standing on front on Chainbridge Road, 1100 Chainbridge Road, which is one of our projects also. We're looking backyard, the trees in the back or the tree save areas that Mr. Burns had concerns. Next slide, please. Same side of the house, looking more like where the silt fence area is where the stormwater management underground facility has been constructed. We're protecting. Next, please. This is the same side, but we're looking from the backyard onto it to show the existing 1100 Chainbridge Road, how it relates to our project, our current project. Next slide, please. This is where the pool is going to be constructed with the gazebo behind it, near that awning overlook. This is in the rear yard of the property. Next slide, please. Viewing from more of the left side of the house to the backyard and where the facility is, the stormwater management, and where the pool is going to be, and showing where the tree save area has been and these additional tiny evergreens happening. Next slide, please. Turning towards 1126 Chainbridge Road to the left, which is Chinese property, and Beverly saw it down in the yard and all of that. Next slide, please. This is 1126 Chainbridge Road is to the left, and this fencing is our property and the evergreens that have been planted along the side. Next slide, please. Looking from closer to the front of the house on the same side, looking to the backyard. More of the same view. We're trying to present to you that the houses on either side are not really visible and vice versa. They cannot see much of our property. This picture is from the front yard of the 1100 Chainbridge Road property looking onto our site. This is the house that we have built on the current project. Next slide, please. From the backyard of 1100 where the pool and all is, looking towards our property. Next slide, please. Go further down to see that this large existing tree is sort of what I'm looking for. Screen. Thank you very much. More of the same view. This is the intersection of Chainbridge Road and Georgetown Pike, and the site is this first lot is 1100, and next to it is ours. This is on Georgetown Pike, looking onto 1100. As you noted, there is no way of seeing 1102 and the pool and the gazebo. Next slide, please. And then we've taken more pictures going down Georgetown Pike until the end of lot 1100. This fencing, fencing is the 1100 Chainbridge Road property. Next slide, please. Slide, please. So this is the original pre-development plan, what used to be there on the property, and this is 1100 Chainbridge Road that I was mentioning last month, that really nothing could be seen from Georgetown. Members of the board had concerns regarding that. Next slide, please. This is what was previously approved with a larger pool and without the amenity gazebo. Next slide, please. This is the current condition that we're proposing. the difference between this grading plan and what was approved last month is Mr. Burns specifically had concerns regarding the way this wall, the height of this wall that holds the gazebo up, what the relationship of it is gonna be. And so what we changed here was that we pulled this grade down further. And so the wall is gonna be from the outside of the gazebo. It will look shorter. It's not as tall. Next slide, please. This is a realistic view of the pool with the approved facade of the house that is being constructed, finished product. Next slide, please. And this is the view where Mr. Burns had concerns with the height of the wall and the fact that we brought this grade up and to make it a shorter retaining wall. Next slide. I turn from here to Mr. Yusufi because these are all architectural drawings. If you have any questions or anything, this is the front elevation and I'll let it.
This is a retaining wall. 3.6 total height, 10 feet, which is 2.
Next slide, please.
I mean, all due respect, it's perhaps too simple. I mean, I don't know what you got scupper near stone gazebo floor. That wood, metal, like, I mean,
Metal structure covered with PVC painted.
I mean, I just feel like I could stack 2 sticks on top of it. There you go. It just doesn't, I feel like for a design drawing, it doesn't feel like enough to help me understand what's being constructed here. I mean, I get it in concept. I see, lines.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like this would make it for a rule as an actual construction document, would it? And again, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, so I could be uninformed on that.
If I may interject here, Mr. Chairman, the intent here is a workshop, and I understand what you're saying. We're trying to avoid having a situation where we had with 1100 Chambers Road that we spent a significant amount of money finalizing the house drawings, somewhat north of $60,000, and in the workshop, the board didn't like it. So we felt like we learned our lesson. Let's have a few workshops before we move on to the next.
I think that caveat would be helpful to know going in, that that's the intent here, because I don't know if I would call these design drawings, maybe concept drawings.
We are
that you're going to and I know that you have to come with something that's more just going to go through permitting, but it just that what I'm seeing here, and I missed the last meeting. I unfortunately had a reason I would have rather been here, but
I am not, Mr. Chairman, I am not trying to throw anybody under the bus. What your concern is here has been my concern all along, but like Mrs. Orr mentioned, the client comes to us and says, this is what I want to do. They said, I am not going to do final design. So here we are. My intent is if the board agrees with this, we hopefully come in next month with the action documents, but we're going to submit it as required 2 weeks in advance. In my humble opinion, this gazebo structural drawings is not going to be a significant design. It is not like
no,
a house.
I don't necessarily expect them to be.
Exactly, but please do not assume that we're not gonna come up with the required documents to pull permit on this. That's a requirement of the county. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, sorry, don't even tell me you.
Last time, you already mentioned that the property was built. The home is already built. And I was hoping that, instead of, since it's built, we don't need to rely on computer renderings, for the building at least, that perhaps you could, watch the proposed or in front of the built building. So, but I don't.
You don't believe that the rendering that we
Well, why
provide?
would we have- I mean, no, I believe a camera, I not believe, but I think that visually, if we have an actual building, it would be even better to get a sense of appropriateness if we saw the proposal in front of it. I mean, personally, I think that's better than a computer rendering.
Pardon me for my ignorance. Yes, the house, you notice that in the pictures, the house is up. The pool and the gazebo have not been built. So how are we to show you besides?
You rectify a photograph in Photoshop and take your gazebo and you put it on top. It's a little bit funky, but I mean, it's definitely been done.
Do you not think the rendering that we have, because the house that we're showing is what the board approved for the facility?
So, yeah, I'm more in tune with my actual eye than I am with computers, and that's my professional bias, perhaps. But and I didn't trespass. I mean, I didn't visit the property because I think this is the rear, so I couldn't see it from the street. So anyway, that's my.
We've had issues in the past with the renderings not reflecting the actual architectural drawings. And so I kind of agree with Ms. Hammock. I don't want to rely on the rendering. Honestly, I'm not even looking at it. I'm looking at what's being built here, looking at the height. And so obviously comparing that to the construction drawings, I can do that. But what she's suggesting is you got a structure. You can actually you can layer those two things together saying, hey, here's the gazebo we want to build. Here's it next to the actual built building. I'm not saying you have to do it. It's just, it'd be even easier to see it since reality already exists. The building's there, but.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we're of the belief that the rendering represents what has been built.
Subtleties of materiality, I think, always comes through better in either in person or in photograph. But I want it to be shown.
Can you go to the right side elevation?
I'll get to you in just a second.
Yes, that, okay. So that's 3'6", so that would mean there's another 3'6" down to grade based on that drawing. So that's 6'6" wall there.
No, ma'am. If you go back to the grading plan.
Because I know that was a discussion, lots of discussion about that last time.
Can you zoom in, please, to this area? The top of the wall is 66.7. It's 3.5 foot above this elevation. This is a 62, and that's a 62, and this is a 62 also in that corner. So 62 to 66, that's a 4.7 foot tall, not 6 foot. It used to be with the old grading. You are correct. That's why I mentioned that we revised this. You're welcome.
Yeah, at the last workshop, I asked for pictures from the street. And you showed us pictures of some bushes the street, but you didn't show us the actual house, which is this visible from the street. You chose to take pictures that block the view of the house from the street. So this is what it actually looks like. And you have said to us today that you built what was approved. This is not what was approved. So you're absolutely correct that we need to see a picture of what you actually built on the rear to make sure that it matches what was approved. I mean, this is a whole separate issue from your thing today. But when you're telling us that you built what was approved, this is not what was approved. So we've got a major problem here. Are you disputing that these are pictures taken from Chainbridge Road? Is one looking up one end of the?
If you're telling me that's what they are, that's what they are.
That's okay. Well, I took these just a couple of weeks ago after visiting another historic property at the north end of Fairfax County. And I wanted to see for myself what this was. And that's what I saw. So, when you tell us that what you have built on the rear matches what we approved, it's hard for me to believe that when I have pictures that show what was built on the front doesn't match what was approved.
I will let the client know that they need to provide actual facade of the house.
Okay. But, the whole separate issue is, how on earth are you going to get a certificate of occupancy if you didn't build what was approved?
I'll relay that to the owner.
We've got a credibility issue here. Right now, I don't have a lot of faith that what you're presenting is what's actually going to happen.
And I think to the presentation about the pictures showing from Georgetown Pike, you're still developing that adjacent lot, correct?
We will be, yes.
So part of the problem with relying on the screening from that lot is, when we've talked previously, there's going to be lots of changes and modifications that might happen there. That screening may not exist. So that's part of the reason we have such concerns with development on that lot, is because it then opens up a view shed further from Georgetown Pike into these houses, which, I'm glad if they make the clients happy, but they do not comport the character of the historic overlay district in any general sense. They're massing their size or scale. So when we've tried to work with design on them, we're trying at best to minimize their visual impact. And then obviously when you've come to us previously with the other adjacent house, which we're not here talking about today, we've been working on trying to get to a design that actually is more sympathetic. But I kind of agree with Mr. Burns' concern that we could even get to that point, and now I'm more worried that even if we did, would it get built? And in the end, or would we end up with something different? That's a larger concern, because honestly, a gazebo in a backyard next to this pool that's a house this big, it's almost immaterial. It's so tiny in comparison to what's there. I'm not too worried about it in the large scheme of things, but there's, as Mr. Burns said, a large credibility concern that we have anytime we approve something now, that, we kind of go on good faith that it's going to get built the way that we've approved it. And we're having a hard time making sure that that's the case.
May I ask a question? When you say this is not what is approved, the house footprint and the facade, to the best of my knowledge, are exactly as it was approved. We did not change the house footprint. We did not use any different material than what was approved for the facade of the building that was approved with the ARB approval. What is it that you're saying we did not, or the builder did not follow?
I was frankly stunned when I saw this, because it did not comport with what I remembered being approved. Now, I have to admit, I did not go back and pull up the previously approved set of drawings and go down and look at it. But this does not have the richness of detail that I expected to see in a house of this size and scale. It's just, there's very little character to the detail. And so I would hope that our board, and I would hope that the county folks who review this and give certificates of occupancy go back and say, is this what was approved? My personal opinion is it does not match. And I'm just one person. And I'm raising this issue because I think we have seen other instances, not just with this one, other instances where people don't build what was in the approved set of drawings. They don't use different materials. They change parking areas. They use different materials. And that's a real problem. Because what is our purpose?
Renderings can be some smokes and mirrors too.
Yeah. So, it's how do we assure that what was approved is what gets built? When the county code folks go out and take a look at it, would they have approved something that I believe is so radically different? And it's.
We should be doing our own sign. Maybe we do sign offs for new construction. Maybe Daniel does.
I think that might be a discussion for
Yeah.
a staff administrative
Yeah.
discussion.
I think this is a bigger problem than the gazebo.
The question that, John, that you brought up, because Mr. Burns shared that image and asked that question. I think it's a question for staff to answer for us, because I don't have the approval set that we looked at when we approved that, but I had the same reaction that he had, that this does not look like what I recall of being approved. I want staff to kind of verify that because they're the keeper of that ultimate record. Setting that aside, because that is not why we're here technically, but it does have weight on it. And even my arguments about 1100, you're not here presenting 1100. You're talking about a gazebo structure that you're proposing in the back of this one, that you have to come to us with actual drawings eventually to seek that approval. I mean, I do stand by my opinion. The structure itself is, in the scale of everything else, it's negligible, but it has to have actual drawings that can be constructed by for it to come through here. And I'm going to personally rely on the architects and the actual seasoned folks here to tell me that, because I'm not an architect. So, but when I look at what you have in concept, I know that there's going to have to be more detail, more information, because there are questions like what Ms. Moore brought up about understanding the grading and the actual height here, that when those all come together, someone's got to actually be able to build it. And I want to make sure it's something that when we say, yes, that's the gazebo we get, that's the gazebo that goes back there. And so that's my take on it. I'm not, from a gazebo perspective, it is what it is, but.
Mr. Yusuf, in regards with what is required to put in a permit set, what are you going to provide?
I'm going to talk to the engineer. Yes, so there is a structure work. I know something still work as far as finish work. And that's it. It's not much of a structure. It's just post and wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll want all that. We'll want whatever the engineer is
we'll
going to
get
give.
it. For permit, we have to do it. And we'll do it when it's needed. But I didn't think at this point we needed that.
So
I don't think that it's that you need it now. I think it's that we try to use these workshop sessions to provide you as much information as we can, so that when you do come in for approval, you can be more confident that it's going to be approved. And my concern, I don't want to speak for everybody, but when you come back, if it's an action item and now we're seeing things, some more of the details for the first time, that could lead to issues at that point. That would be my concern.
We recognize it's a balancing act that obviously I understand, and that I think even more sympathetic to some of the small homeowners that have come in who live in OHODs. They don't want to have an architect do a giant set of drawings for them, then for a workshop, then have to change it all again and spend a lot of money. However, some of our properties have a little bit more flexibility with what they can spend. I'm not telling you to spend a lot of money, but recognizing that if we can't grasp the concept through the design drawings or even the conceptual drawings, then that may be an issue, as Mr. Stone pointed out. When it comes back for application, we might see something that we hadn't thought about because we don't know those drawings. So you really have to kind of weigh that. The workshop sessions don't have a strict set of rules on what needs to come here. You could come here with a napkin and a drawing, and will tell you, hey, that looks great in concept, but it, it is just a napkin drawing, so we're gonna need a lot more. And so I would urge any of the members, if there's something reflecting on the gazebo we're being asked about that we would want to see, or you have questions about, I'd share them now so that, and for your sake, when you do come back for an application, we're not going to surprise you with another request, because material information, I want to make sure, I'm a novice at the actual construction site, so I'm not that professional, but I just feel like there's not enough there. So as you said, you're going to make sure what permit folks need to see. We can sometimes be a little bit more persnickety than them. Really definitely want to make sure, but I ask if anyone else wants to share any feedback.
I think you might be underwhelmed by what.
Yes.
I want to speak, and I'm not speaking ill, they just require less. So, but that's fine, we can ask. So anyway, I just kind of in the architect's. I was close to 20 files for permit.
Yeah, and I'm not doing a good job getting out. That's what I'm kind of asking for. I know that the permit might not ask for.
Materiality, like I noticed.
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
I would like to say, and this is a positive comment, everything else you've said is true, but I think the direction you're going in with the changing the height of the wall, the retaining wall, the simplicity of the gazebo, you're going in the right direction and as to that. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Sorry, Ms.
I just saw in one photograph, there was some stained wood fencing. Was that your property to Screen Mechanicals?
Stained wood fencing.
It wasn't really fence, it was more like a 4-foot fence.
Okay, that is, okay, this is not our property,
Oh.
no. There is in one of the
Okay.
pictures, did you see the wrought iron, black, wrought iron fence? That is our
The
property.
point was just, I would like to know that the materiality of the gazebo will complement the rest of the property. So if there's a patina, your stain, or.
May I ask you to go to the renderings for the gazebo above?
I think it's below.
Because I worry that it's not gonna weather well.
Right in this area. To the best of my knowledge, this is the house that has been built. This is the house that was built, because this is adding this pool to the rendering that was approved. The same
I
entity
don't see any wood on that property, the elevation, so just.
of the main house, ma'am. You are correct. There is no wood. I mean, this is the architect who designed it. There is no wood on that.
Except the trim.
Now, with all due respect, you have caught something correctly in that this rendering shows these columns to be at least a faux wood look. It is going to be a white PVC, is it not?
Color, try to match the existing house, the colors,
Yes.
but it's covering the steel.
See, that's not there. That's not, I mean, that's
I
not
didn't
this.
want to see PVC anywhere on this building.
You would not want to?
I didn't review the original submission, so that's fine. Okay.
Well,
We're
if,
moving in the right direction, I think that's the takeaway.
with all due respect, ma'am, tell us what you would like to see and we'll do.
Go and review a project that's already been approved by the board.
No, in regards with the gazebo, if you have preferences, if any members of the board have preferences, please voice them and we will adhere to it.
I think what you're hearing is that the material and the colors should be respectful of what's already built on the house.
I mean,
Right now, we're seeing a faux wood look on it, and that's how the house
Is
looks
that
like.
an anodized bronze window? Is that a flat matte window? I mean, these things matter to me, these subtleties. So that's why the computer rendering is not as good to me as a built structure.
I would have figured the same types of materials are being similar materials using railings and the doors and windows on the, whatever was built there would be reflected from the gazebo. Otherwise, it definitely looks like the gazebo was either there first or the gazebo there was there second because it's built around it.
It should be metal.
The roof is actually one asking, it's just created by steel and extension.
The gazebo feels rustic while the house feels very unrustic. At least with materials alone.
Like, it's not a pergola that you would see in domestic architecture. It's very modern looking. And so the wood just, I guess, I'm not convinced that wood is the right material for it, but I also don't feel like I have all the information. So maybe it is the right material.
Perhaps referencing whenever you do come back, the material on the gazebo and the material that's on the house from what was the approved plan set, so that we could know this is what's being used here, this is what was approved and what was used. And you could show a photo if it's built and you say, here's the photo of the material on the house. We're going to do the same type of color matching.
Like,
There's no easier way to prove that that's the color you're going to replicate than showing me the real thing.
like, is that your white picket fence? I think that's a white fence.
Rendering, yes. That is not,
Okay, so maybe it's white painted wood. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure what it should be.
would you rather see us in another workshop session?
The door detail, or yes, I mean, I think that would probably make sense, but yeah. To me, it seems like there's not enough specific questions have been asked about materials. If you came back with more specific information on materials.
Yeah, I think you're hearing from, at least I haven't heard the major objection. It's negligible in comparison to the size of the house, and you're going in the right direction with the scale, the lightness of it, but we don't know what the materials you're choosing are. We don't know how they reflect the structure. And some of that could probably be easily answered with, here's what we built on the house, here's what we're going to use. I think coming back with that would be an easier way to know if confidence. That's something that we would prove. That's my gut reaction to that.
You will get it. We'll see you next month in another work session. How is that?
All right.
No smartiness. I'm just being very.
I appreciate you coming back for work sessions.
And appreciate your patience with
Yeah.
No problem. Patience is a virtue, right? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, we don't have any presentations. So that would take up on you. It doesn't better on time to get here. Save it for new business. Let's go through our board and staff items. Review and approval of previous month's minutes for the November 9th meeting. There's Elise.
Hi, Elise.
Or
Looks like
Member Murray.
Nice little nook.
Member Murray. Good to see you, Member Murray. All right, so I wasn't here for the last meeting, so obviously you all, it would be all on you all to say if you had any comments, or Daniel's got any comments.
I have not received any comments.
If not, if everyone is set, oh, Mr. Zelman.
There's not any, I would move that they already approve the December 14th. The clerk for anything.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
And one abstention. All right, take us on to the treasurer's report. We have an ending balance as of November 30th of $18,913.35.
Big holiday.
And I was gonna say, I don't know if it was particularly for Gabrielle and Rachel, that obviously some of that money is something that always would pay the recording secretary and other things for. But members do also use it to provide some support for training or attending conferences like John has and Kate has. So if that's something you do choose to do in the future, you just let us know.
If I get paid, it'll be $1,000 less.
Yes.
So
But we actually,
It's been submitted.
Yeah.
I told Kay I would check.
usually things furthering the members' education, things like that, or,
It's a heavy one.
Continue.
yeah. Yes.
Quickly, I can say the budget request is written with a $330 allotment per member per year.
We found that sometimes we don't spend it, and so sometimes it pools up a little bit, so we allowed John to dip the lead a little bit more. All right, unless there are any other questions on budget, administrative items, we go into the nominating committee, which is a whole fancy separate handout for. Okay. So I have to announce the opening of nominations for the 2024 slate of officers, right? Daniel, is that how this works? All right, I'm announcing the opening for the 2024 slate of officers and the nominating committee, which was made of Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Kalinsky is going to report out. Is there a slate of officers?
All right, so Mr. Chairman, the nominating committee submits the following nominations. Chairperson, Daniel Light, for vice chairperson, Jason Zellman.
Right, oh. You just nominated Daniel for. Oh.
No.
Daniel, something like. Wow, very clever. Very clever. I was like,
Yeah.
at two, Daniel.
Surprise. Dale's like, you know.
The K's like,
Now I'm having my senior moment. Nominating committee nominates Mr. Daniel, Mr. Zellman for vice chairperson, for treasurer, Mr. Burns.
all right. So the nominating committee nominations, Mr. Daniel for chairperson, Mr. Zellman for chair. Mr. Zellman for vice chair and Mr. Burns for treasurer. The nominations are now open on the floor. Are there any further nominations for chairperson? Right, if there are no further nominations, nominations for the seat of chairperson is closed. Are there any further nominations for vice chairperson? Hearing none, the nominations for vice chairperson are closed. Are there any further nominations for treasurer? Don't nominate them. All right, hearing none, the nominations for the seat of treasurer are closed. All right. We have two options for voting. Election by voice vote. Candidates are unopposed or no contest of seat. So I think we can do that, correct, Daniel?
The more efficient option is number 2.
Number 2, comprehensive vote to approve the slate. Oh, yes. All right. Yes, I agree with the almost chairman, Mr. White. So
things up a little.
I would entertain a motion from someone to put up the slate of officers. That's on page 2. Let's see. Oh, this matter.
I move that the ARB approve the slate of officers for 2024, which is Mr. Daniel for chairperson, Mr. Zellman for vice chairperson, Mr. Burns for treasurer.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? It is on this floor. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Oh, you're abstaining, Mr. Burns.
Vote for myself.
Thought about that.
I don't think we can actually do that if you don't vote. All right, well, Mr. Burns abstains in respect to Burns. Okay. All right, so the motion carries. We have our new slate of officers. I will think I'll point out that this will be my 4th term, so I cannot run again after this term, so.
Unless we change the bylaw.
So I would encourage people to think about if you're interested in being chairperson in 2025. Daniel, if you're looking, if you tried to usurp this time, it didn't work. I caught it. Just a little bit. All right. So that takes us out of that nominating committee. Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky, for handling that with Mr. Plumpy. Business cards and ARB correspondence. Daniel.
Yes, everyone should have a handout that has 2 template options. I also posted this in the Ignite folder. This is based on the template that we use in the planning division, and I consulted with Jill Cooper, who is the Board of Supervisor clerk. And I don't know if anyone read it, but I also got feedback from the county FOIA officer. So our recommendation, the top option would include your name. I only made this for Mr. Daniel just for efficiency. Would include your name, so that is changeable. Architectural Review Board. It would have the DPD mailing address, since that's where mail from the ARB is sent, or for the ARB is sent. If you would like to include your personal email, it is there. I have a caveat in just a second. And then that is the direct link to the ARB website. So there, my contact information is on there if your email is left off of the
Daniel,
card.
not want to put his contact information directly.
That was the direction from my supervisor. Yes. So if someone really wants to, they can find me, but
I think this second item is the more important item.
yes. And so the second option card is the same thing with no email. So in that correspondence from the FOIA officer, we were strongly encouraged to recommend to all BAC members that you create a dedicated email address that is exclusively used for business, conducting public business. Chris made one after our discussion last week. That is now Christopher Daniel ARB at gmail.com. That is our suggested format. This is not the official county advice, but you can forward emails from an account to your regular inbox. This suggestion is coming because if the ARB were ever subject to a vFOIA request, your email is potentially subject to a vFOIA request and could be copied. And I know that several members use their professional work email. So that is just the recommendation.
Yeah. Well, so it was a very, when Daniel brought up a very interesting point, never brought up before, and we've talked about it, so I'm glad they mentioned it from now. So obviously we don't have to, but I took the advice, and so I'm going to be shifting to that one, just in general anyways, because that current one is about to blow up the amount of files that have been sent to thanks to this darn job, this off.
There is a way to, I have 2 emails, my maiden and married name, and they all go to the same inbox. And then when I send out of the inbox, it's a drop down and I pick who I want to send it from. Yeah, who I want to be that day.
Yes, John.
We are a county organization.
Mhm.
Why don't we get county emails?
This time I'm told it's too complicated. There is that standing request.
It is complicated.
I know. That's not the answer you want. There is a standing request right now at many levels above me to have the ARB assigned to a permanent meeting room and have channel 16 support for meetings. That is still being negotiated and worked through the system, as opposed to myself doing the IT in the room. Well, that was.
Go to our own supervisors and say we need. The 5 supervisors are telling.
No, that's exciting news, Daniel. That's the definitely.
Yeah, we had a meeting earlier this year with Chris and Leanna O'Donnell, who is the director of the planning division. She raised that concern to the appropriate person. It is being negotiated. I can say part of the problem is the planning commission has standing meetings on Thursdays, which align with ours. So we might not get room 11, but we might get a permanent room assignment that is always ours.
One right down here. It's always empty when we're here on Thursdays.
2-3? Not right next door?
Down. That's big. Donut table in the middle.
I will walk by it after this and see.
I'd be happy to show it to you.
Okay.
It's always empty on Thursdays when we're here.
So that is part of the standing request. In other conversations I've had with the clerk, the only BAC in the county that has county emails is I think it's the Board of Supervisors and possibly Planning Commission. So
I personally, John, didn't want to deal with that hassle of trying to access.
The boards I staffed didn't have in your room too.
Okay, but maybe one of the things that we should do is if you have an email on here, it should say ARB@fairfaxcounty.fairfaxcounty.gov. Just have an ARB email.
well, we ran through all of the
And everyone will
options.
have access to that.
Well, I think this is more
I think then we're getting into the FOIA issue because under the current interpretation of eFOIA, the county attorney is advising that even email correspondence by more than 2 members, that's why I blind copy everyone, could be considered a public meeting. So if everyone has access to a shared inbox, that is the same. We're getting into that. They're being very conservative with their interpretation. But that's because they do not want to be the test case that is
So if you,
litigated.
if you can send an email and BCC everyone, that avoids the appearance of a meeting.
Yes,
So if I send an email and I BCC everyone,
yes,
that also avoids that requirement. Okay. So then that email that I sent to you and BCC,
yes. And
I would have happily sent to everyone.
I do have it, I can send that tomorrow. That's on my list of things to do with the previous approval package. But back to the BCC, I do have that updated contact list since we had 3 new members join, but I did not send it out because I do not know if anyone else will be making a dedicated ARB email following this discussion. So if that happens.
Sounds like Mr. Zalman might as well. I mean, it naturally, the amount of files that have been sent previously before we had the download site, my inbox was already choked. So I don't know why I didn't come to this decision already.
There is we are making the fiscal year 2025 budget request for that large technology expense, which would be county-owned devices. So there is the possibility that when we get, if that is approved, when we get to that point, we can bring up the county email discussion.
Or at least you'd have just the count that you go to that device to access your email in the future.
Yeah, I would think that everybody is moving. In fact, all of the submissions now are by email, and they're all digital and all of a sudden we're saying, well, the ARB, all of a sudden you guys are hanging out here with your own personal emails that you create.
That's where we're laying the groundwork in that technology request is to catch up to.
I mean,
the
we're
digital
either in or we're out.
Right.
Right now we're out. Okay.
So I guess for Daniel's sake, one, did you need us to say whether or not we liked one particular?
This, I can do either. This is not a requirement. This came up during last month's discussion when there was the unilateral motion for staff to order things without approval as needed for supplies.
A lawyer run the meeting.
I can't make motions.
So I know that some members want them. So if you want a business card, I can send out an email prompting you to respond to me with what information you want on it, and then I can place orders. Okay. That is amenable to everyone.
I would encourage folks to think about if you are going to create another email, let Daniel soon so that he can update that roster and reflect it. Because I'm going to try to be transitioning to mine. I think Mr. Zellman's going to do the same. So that's just something to
Do
consider.
you want us to do the same format, Christopher, Daniel?
That is our recommendation from the planning division, especially if it's being put on your business card. Should you order them? Some sort of, I don't really care about the domain, whatever your preference is, but some sort of uniformity, your name and the ARB.
A quick question on the need for the business card. How often, I mean,
not.
okay, so can we save some trees and not?
Yeah, it's not a requirement. That's just should anyone want, I know John might want some, Elise had mentioned it possibly. So if anyone wants them, I will have 2 options of templates, and then I will probably request like 50 max. I don't know. I just got a giant box that I don't know that I'll ever get through in my tenure. So
Everybody gets 500 cards and they throw away 400 when they get a new job.
I made the suggestion because I heard members of the board complaining that the History Commission has cards, so why can't we? Or somebody was at a meeting and they saw one of the History Commission cards and said, why can't I have one? And that's why I raised it to you all. The History Commission has them. We have our personal email and our personal addresses on them.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
I passed it out. I passed it out to you last week, but last month. Did you not look at it?
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't hear, so in my defense, I didn't know that. Now I know oh man.
So that is why we landed on the recommended template. As much county information as we can, and then if something is addressed directly to you, I will get it to you. But we're not putting our email.
Okay.
Because then I get plenty of emails. So
Discussion, updates, reports.
I do not have any report updates.
Okay. Any correspondence or announcements?
That's kind of under old or new business.
All right. Old business, Golden Run Mill, store 88.
Yes, I was contacted 2 weeks ago by the designer on that project. They have run into a code issue with the way that the water fountain was approved, which for those who remember from the summer was a standalone fixture next to the proposed ADA ramp. The code will either require some sort of waiver to go into the well. I don't know what that means, or it was described as an unsightly vent pipe through the top of the water fountain. So given that those are the options, they are considering relocating the water fountains onto changing the fixture to wall-mounted units under the roof on the porch next to the restrooms. I asked to see renderings, and then because it was a very hypothetical discussion, more so if they have to come back to the ARB or not. It's looking like they will, but I have not seen renderings yet. So that's just to put it on your radar. They might be back as a minimal change to what was approved, because that's not substantially conforming. Any questions on that?
Joe will be sorely disappointed.
That's what Denise said when we talked about it. Next on my list is we included two maps into the Lorton action applications, which could be pulled.
Please. No. Fill them with magna blocks out of my son's room.
Interesting.
The audio was gone for a while. Are you looking at me for a reason?
Yep.
Daniel wants to show, so they've been adding, so the objective was Daniel talking about adding in some contextual maps
Solar
as part of every package so that we have a better idea of where the project is being proposed for the HOD. And so they were in the packages for the Lorton.
after the record summary.
Yeah.
You do remember the applicant?
You need to share it.
Because they're using the county's map.
Share it in the share your
It
screen.
would just become a standard thing we would see.
Yeah, so that's something that we started this month where we also, after Elisa's suggestion, started combining the package. So I hope that was helpful for navigating. We are still making some improvements to the layer in the GIS, but the first map for every application, and this kind of ties back to the submission matrix we discussed last month, would have the full extent of the HOD with the parcel highlighted like it does here. I have since created new shapes that are an outline instead of the filled in polygon, so that makes more legible. And then the second map on an aerial would be zoomed in on the case number parcel for more context. So we're also going to try to add all of the information that's on the current HOD maps, so including contributing, historic, non-contributing resources, those are all marked, as well as the major road, scenic byway, or thoroughfares. So just for continued consistency from the design guideline documents through the application. So if there is not any feedback on that, you will continue to see them moving forward.
That's terrific. That's
Great.
the first step on staff reports.
Yes. And then one of them, the zoomed in one, will be in the staff report template, which we are currently working on a template for. I'm sure there is. Okay. So we are going to the staff reports. The template I was just talking about, we are working on, I think the last version that was seen and reviewed by the board in 2019 or 2020 was created by Nicole Brannon. So we're working off of that and we're integrating that submission matrix. So we're kind of grouping projects in tiers, and the tiers would have the minimum amount of submission requirements that will all be reviewed by OCA. We are to a point where there are templates for Holland Hills being reviewed internally. Once we get feedback from all of the levels that have to review it internally, we're going to start doing some case study practice in-house. Jonathan is actually going to be doing previous cases that you have seen as if it were coming through to the board, and then kind of testing that and figuring out any tweaks we need to make before we bring one to you to review that's more recent. That is the update on staff reports. We are actively working on it.
Rachel and Gabrielle, we're very close to having staff reports, then all our staff. They all went to different jobs and other opportunities. It was good things. They,
Fairfax.
yeah.
And then the next update I have, and I will try to be quick because I know of timing. We have previously discussed some of the trades permits, and trades permits in the county encompass mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. So in October, if you remember, there was the HVAC permit in Lake Ann that got all the way to permit issuance and then was caught by the Lake Ann Association, and the permit was pulled back and they came to the ARB. The reason that is happening is because when Plus was introduced, those types of permits were not being flagged in HODs in the same way that other building permits are being flagged. That is an update happening in Plus targeted for the first quarter of 2024. We have a report built out that we are checking daily, and we have consulted with LDS staff, and they are now completing an additional check on their end. So we're hoping to avoid that happening until it's permanently fixed in Plus. As a result, there will be more mechanical permits coming through that we cannot administratively approve. One of them is the Bunnyman Brewing project that we just saw. That project came in, I think, in June or July for the exterior staircase. In case anyone is not aware, it comes to the ARB. There's sometimes the simultaneous building permit where the building permit comes after. We get flagged. We conduct a conformance check to ensure that it substantially conforms with what the ARB approved. If it does, we clear our review and it moves on. Denise completed the review of the exterior staircase in August. 3 different versions of plans were uploaded in the plan room after the fact, and we never saw it again until the permit was almost issued. And at that point, I said, the fan has to come to the ARB. So that is the reason on the county side that permit was haphazardly issued, cut in half, portions were removed. There are several county executives involved. It's a very big project for the county. Thankfully, we are not the delay in the brewery opening. They're delayed regardless of ARB involvement, so we are not to blame. But so that is one example. I just had another mechanical permit that was almost all interior come through in Liberty, in one of the building directly adjacent to the Bryn Mawr preschool. They're doing build out for a gym. It's almost all interior plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. But they're punching through windows and putting in louvers. They're putting in HVAC units, none of which has been seen by the board. So that is flagged because it is in Lorton. That requires the 30-day submission window. So that is now backed up by at least 5 weeks. So we've had very, very entry-level discussions about a mechanical finish comprehensive plan for those 2 campuses, similar to the way that there's a comprehensive sign plan for Liberty. Those sign permits all come in and we administratively approve them because they match and conform. So that is something that we are going to be, that's the heritage resources perspective as what is needed. We are having discussions with LDS, economic initiatives, all of the other people involved. And that seems like the best interim solution, especially since, as Scott Sizer mentioned, there are multiple projects coming down the pike in the Workhouse campus. All of the previous campus-wide reviews and approvals were more focused on stabilization and preparing the buildings for adaptive reuse, as opposed to the customized tenant build-out that we're now experiencing. So those are all going to have different mechanical fixtures that could not be anticipated at the time. Any questions? I know that's a lot of information, but any questions on that? So
that is happening.
Yeah.
We're finding this access point.
Yes, so we've had lots of discussions with building executive, people on LDS, people in the commercial trades. So we're hoping to catch it because I do not know how many things we were not catching. I don't know how many things we're going through without us getting flagged. So we're fixing it now while we can.
And I think the larger sign plan, similar to mechanical plan for Liberty or Lord, the whole area. When we went for that for the signs, it made a lot of sense. So. Advice for this. No, thanks.
For Liberty, it might make sense to have a kit of parts for the second floor decks.
Yeah.
We've seen 3 very quickly, and they all have essentially the same.
It is my understanding that their HOA has the one type of deck that can be built. So they have to go to them first, in the same way they have to go to the DRC in Holland Hills. So I think that is the only thing that is allowed. Obviously, there seems to be differences in roof pitch. That is what I was told.
Curious to know what they're being told is the parameters that they're operating with.
Yeah.
Um,
and are we good with decks? Because, what the county requires to get a permit for a deck is just
the worksheet.
up.
Right. So anytime someone is coming forward with a deck, I tell them that the ARB wants to see structural drawings. So those, we're almost always getting them. That is part of the larger question when we have that submission matrix getting reviewed and vetted by the county attorney's office, is that we are legally allowed to ask for or require what we are requiring. Right now, no one is pushing back on it.
Bylaws are fairly.
Right.
A lot of latitude.
But that is an instance I think that could be perceived of the ARB and Heritage Resources requiring more of a homeowner than the county requires for the permit. So we are trying to tread the line of, for any deck in the county, you do not have to submit structural drawings. It is a checklist which gives you almost no information.
I would hope for a gazebo.
That would not be approved from permitting based on my discussions with permitting regarding other applications. There was no bracing, they didn't even know what the materials were. So, which we can jump around. I do have an informant compliance after approval update since Mr. Burns brought that to my attention earlier. I also drove by that house after the site visit at Drover's Rest. I did a quick check this afternoon. There are several things that are not the same on that primary facade as on the drawings that were approved as the photo. So this is part of a larger discussion that we, since the motion, I think it was passed in September, directing Heritage Resources staff to investigate what powers the ARB has when it comes to informants or enforcement and compliance with approvals as they are constructed. Of course, there is an understanding that drawings and plans are drawings and plans, and when you get to site conditions, things might change to make things a reality. And so we had a meeting, Denise and I had a meeting with the county attorney and the LDS building official, the county attorney, to discuss this. One proposed solution is adding a list of, I don't know the number of requirements that inspection officers would have to look for on ARB cases before the COA or certificate can be passed. That would be a large change to the workflow for the inspections department because they are generally looking at code and safety, not at aesthetics. So I do not know what that would look like in practice, but we are discussing it. I also can say from the county attorney, the one that we were dealing with on this, he has indicated that theoretically there is enforcement action which can be taken under the current zoning ordinance in Virginia code, like legislatively against property owners or developers that are not complying. I do not know what that looks like because we're theoretically that's what we're talking about. So we have several more meetings lined up to discuss that.
I'm more worried about 11.
Yeah.
Expecting an inspector to do that type of sign off and be able to understand that, like on that new construction, the photograph was the trim work is so shallow. That stands out to us, but to an inspector that might not, and it almost seems unfair to expect them to learn all new language. What if we, and there's only one of you, so you can't be driving all over Fairfax visiting instructions. So what if we just require that they submit photographs to us or to you?
That's another
And then you look at the
possibility.
photographs, and if it looks good, okay, if it looks questionable, then you do a site visit, and that kind of just, otherwise we need 5 of you, right, to do all that.
Jason has a.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, because we were talking about 1102 earlier and Mr. Jabori's issues, I think everything was perfectly talked about. When it's an action item, I think we should try to link our discussion. Certainly, if we think he's had issues on other projects, I think that's fine. Oh, yeah, I just.
Yeah, that's
right.
Trying to pull us back in.
Right, because, you know, if I have never really had much of a concern that anybody was ever going to give us a hard time, but if I could see us having a hard time, something like that, and I want to make sure our eyes are done.
And if we deny an application, I mean, obviously it can be appealed. Yeah, but that's, I mean, I would not want that to be on our record. Yeah.
I think we can always take no action, feeling that we don't have enough information. That information we have is not consistent. No, okay, just say no.
Well, something we've done in the past is when the discussion looked like it was going to lead to a denial, we said to the applicant, would you like to, giving them the choice, would you like to defer this to
And we'll
a later
defer the application rather than do a full vote of denial. We've done that once recently.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't do a lot of denial applications. We try to be the board of, we'll get you there.
If I could make a suggestion, in Arlington County, they have one of their code officials specifically trained to deal with historic buildings and compliance issues with certificates of appropriateness.
Mhm.
And that's potentially something Fairfax County could do.
Yep.
That's a much smaller jurisdiction. They got one person dedicated to it.
Well, we brought it up before too, John. We mentioned it. I mentioned it to Leanna, I think, during the last big meeting I had with her about, that's because Mr. Jabori was a topic during that meeting. The consistency issue.
I do think it's encouraging that we have been able to have conversations with the county building official that were not previously being had, and he is open to changes of the workflow. I just don't know what that will look like in practice. So that's, we're moving towards some sort of solution to present to ARB, and it is on the radar of several different agencies now, which is good. I will say Mr. Jabori is also on several different agencies' radar. The
New York, where one of us had lost his right to sign and seal because he was falsifying documentations to us and the Department of Building. So it usually is not just one agency that's had the issues with that.
I have not been able to approve the permit for the revised pool that you saw last month because they are not uploading the document that you approved. So I have reached out to the other 2 agencies also reviewing it, saying I am not clearing it until this is fixed, and they're not clearing it. So
we appreciate
it's a problem, and we're trying to do what we can to stop it.
what you all at DPD and Heritage are doing to actually work on this effort. And not just you, but all of y'all.
And I do. I think it's going to be incumbent upon us because it seems to me that he tries to please his clients.
I think also the other thing I would say, Daniel, is when you're putting on this rubric effort, renderings are while they're nice,
They are not included.
definitely, and that is something we've been trying to combat. Obviously, Mr. Jabori presented this, but obviously, as Kelly presented, they don't tell the true story, you know.
The rendering can tell the true story if it's accurately done. The problem with the renderings we've seen in the past where they, and a lot of clients have come in here, they've gone and given their line work, architectural line work to a renderer who's off-site, who produces a sample, and it has their watermark saying, you know, this is ours. and they're not paying those people, and they're presenting that rendering. I mean, that's the dishonesty, unfortunately, of some of the people that we're dealing with. But those renderings aren't, they're not paying them at all.
Yeah.
Those are just samples that they're showing rather than actually paying them to get it accurately correct. You can have an accurate rendering.
We can all read architectural drawings, so there's no harm in just giving us the architectural drawings.
I can say renderings are not in the matrix.
But as an architect, renderings
So-
do help. I mean, we do form models inside the office to figure, digital form models in order to figure out how roofs work and all those things come together. They really do help, and it's changed my job. Clients are more willing to accept a design when you're able to render it rather than give them a straight architectural.
Well, as you say, it's true.
They don't have
a
the-
good rendering and accurate rendering is gonna stand.
Solar panel rendering, those are really helpful.
Well, we've had good ones, we've had bad.
Morning. This evening.
Well, in Los Angeles, when we'd be stamping plans, approving them, we would not stamp if there are renderings in the plans, we wouldn't stamp the renderings. I think
And I think that's what I was playing off is I don't wanna, we kept talking about that was we didn't approve the rendering, we approved the architectural drawings.
It's nice to have an addition, but then you have to
Yeah.
have.
Well, and to defense of Ms. Murray, who, I think you as well as sometimes other members have said, yeah, we can read the plans, but sometimes I'm not gonna pick up Mr. Zelman, but Mr. Zelman is an attorney, and it's sometimes it's for some of us, and Ms. Aubrey has said the same thing when she was an archaeologist, having those renderings is helpful, particularly if someone doesn't spend a lot of time on them. So if they're good rendering, it's great, but it's not in the.
It's been years.
I can, but I don't mind the renderings, but they are not helpful when they're.
Yeah. Well,
From the staff side, we're treating them as supplemental materials, not the required primary. So we're proposing requiring materials or cut sheets for every tier of the project. So you get an actual photo or what is going to be installed, not just talking about what could be installed. And we're requiring architectural or structural drawings when applicable. So renderings will be as needed. They can show massing, they can be incredibly helpful, but that's not going to meet our checklist for getting the application to you, the way that we're thinking about it.
Could I
Yes.
another question about code? I got an email today that the county is going to adopt the 2021 Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code. By inference, does that include the 2021 existing building code?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can find out.
Something that well, yeah, the statewide code encompasses all the different.
So it would.
So it would,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Happy to hear that.
all right, Wellington and River Farm.
Yes, they have a request for a workshop either in January or February. It's from the American Horticultural Society, who is the owner and therefore the steward of that HOD. You have not reviewed any projects in the HOD. I had a brief discussion with one of their board members. They're thinking about, not anytime soon, but they want to present ideas and concepts to you to get feedback as they get into the more planning phases. So I think it will they'll land on the schedule when there is time.
I will say one thing that might be helpful to look at or suggest that is Woodlawn came to us a while back. The trust had a bunch of ideas for Woodlawn. I think very few of those came to fruition, actually. Yeah, but they came with a pretty big package of ideas, and we ended up having several workshop sessions about it. Quite a few of them, I think, some of the farms. There was a whole amphitheater. There was lots of things, but they came and it's productive discussion.
I think at River Farm, they're thinking of probably houses from the Park Service setback, which I think is 200 feet in, plus the big lawn too close to the historic property.
Yeah. Laura figured they were going to try to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let them come.
Let them come. All right.
And Mr. Snyder has moved. No longer owns the house to the south.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just have two more things. Next is a quick discussion on when I send out application packages for January. Based on our current timeline, it would be Friday, December 28th, and I am wondering if anyone is opposed to receiving them on Tuesday, January 2nd.
I was gonna read them on New Year's Eve. Now you're reading my.
I don't want to damper anyone's holiday, but if everyone is amenable to it, they will come out the Tuesday instead of the Friday before.
You need a motion.
No, that's not an official policy. It's just I don't want you to be shocked by the delay.
Yeah, we'll have to deal.
And then the last quick update I have for you is if you remember the Holland Hills Pickleball Club that appeared for a special permit amendment in September. As that got to staffing, it was revealed that they must also apply for a variance because where two of the installed lights are, they are not allowed under the zoning ordinance because they were over 7 feet tall. So zoning is running the variance and the SPA concurrently, and they will be appearing at the BZA either late January or February. So I have notified them that they must come. As you all may be aware, for variances, they have to receive a recommendation of approval. They do not have to, but that is the action that would be happening. So we are trying to get more of an understanding of how the zoning side of this is evaluating the case and if they're going to support variance or not. And I can relay that to you when I know.
Careful crossing those pickleball. You're out on the shoreline in Arlington.
We're investigating if there's, as you know, the zoning ordinance since Holland Hills was designed and created has changed. And so some things that are now being proposed in setbacks were not. So if they were historically allowed there from Heritage Resources perspective, and that's where they still are, even though they're in the modern setback, our branch position for this report might not be denial. So I'll just keep you all updated.
They're talking about the Fort Hunt Road setback.
Yes.
There were lights there historically, but that was 1948, 1949.
Do they not want the lights to distract the cars? Or what's their?
No, it's just currently you can't have a light post that tall.
They were installed without
Yeah,
review and approval.
setback. Yeah.
That, if all goes well, will be an action item in January because those lights, as you remember, were previously installed before they started the SPA process.
And do remember that we do have on the calendar moving into this year 2 dates.
Yes, so we will be publicizing that. The very big caveat, it is potential special meeting the Monday following the scheduled second Thursday. I think February is the one difference because of President's Day, the federal and county holiday. So I will remind all of you, but for scheduling purposes, it would be easiest if you all have each other's emails, can decide what 6 show up. I don't care what the workout is. But if we are holding a second meeting, we have to have quorum, which is at least 6 people in the room.
Yeah, and that's why we were okay. Elise asked me if she could attend virtually. I confirmed today we had an in-person quorum, and I can grant that. If you're going to ask for one of those, just email me and Daniel simultaneously, and I will copy back on the request approval. And I do also try to work with Daniel when we schedule the meetings. We can make it 1. It's going to be 1. I know, like, this was enough that it was perfect. We could do it, and yeah, we're talking long. That's pressing, but I think it would be better than us trying to have 2 meetings in the same week.
Yes.
All right. If there's no, John.
That's where, the Holland Hills House and Garden Tour for 2024 has been announced. Tickets are available, May 4th. It sold out last year.
But can we all meet together? Do we have to stagger?
No, you have to go into houses separately.
Yeah, I don't
If
think
you can't get within 6 feet of one another.
Only 2 of us can go at a time, I think, just like we did with the Drovers Rest.
Event is, and the tickets are available now.
Tickets are available.
Okay, Joel.
Pardon?
Star Wars Day.
May the 4th.
May the 4th.
May the 4th.
Daniel, thank you also for coordinating arranging the Drovers Rest.
Yep.
Yeah, that is very informative. And
I, for one, was very impressed with the easement that they negotiated.
Yeah.
That's one of the more comprehensive and intelligent easements I've seen.
Mhm.
I
Well,
would-
the gentleman that owned it sounds intelligent.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have a lovely obituary.
And the daughters are very careful stewards of his legacy.
Hopefully the potential buyer will continue to be a good steward.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's always in order. All those in favor? All right, thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.